Chapter 606. At the same time, on Mount Fuji, a setting sun peeked out from the clouds, emitting rays of light that shone on the ground, including the peak of Mount Fuji. The wind stopped and the snow started to slide. The temperature slowly warmed up. However, Sword Saint Yagyu Ida felt a bone-piercing chill in his heart. He knelt on one knee and stared blankly at the young man and woman who were walking further and further down the mountain. The shock on his face lingered for a long time. He had lost. He had lost completely. He, the Japanese sword saint, had used one of the three divine weapons of Japan, the heavenly cumulus sword, but he had still lost to a young man from China. That young man had broken his sword technique, his sword heart, and even his confidence in the way of the sword with just a cherry blossom branch. You don't know the sword, and you're even less worthy of using it. He would never forget what the other party said before he left. At that moment, his silver hair had turned white, and many wrinkles had appeared on his face. It was as if he had aged dozens of years in an instant. That's right. I don't know the sword, and I'm even less worthy of using it. He knelt in the snow and muttered to himself. He seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time. He did not have the aura of the only sword saint in Japan at all. Yagyu Shingen could not hide the shock on his face. He had received guidance from Yagyu Ida since he was young, but after the young man appeared, he was instantly sent into the ice. If not for the fact that the young man could not be bothered to kill him, he would have been beheaded by now. Who exactly are that young man and woman? He stared blankly at the disappearing figures of the young man and woman, his expression changing non-stop. China, it's China again. I thought that mad southern you was already heaven-defying enough, but I didn't expect these two to appear again. At that moment, Yagyu Ida slowly stood up and picked up the heavenly cumulus sword in his hand. He slowly walked to the peak of the snow as if he had lost his soul. I've been hiding the sword for decades, but in the end I realized that I don't know what a sword is. Father, you. Yagyu Shingen's expression changed slightly. It was as if Yagyu Ida did not hear him. Instead, he looked down the mountain in a daze. The sword is the heart, the sword is the soul, the sword is the person, and the sword is a weapon. The sword follows one's nature. I understand. Under Yagyu Shingen's shocked gaze, a dazzling sword gleam suddenly bloomed from his father's body. The sword gleam grew in the wind and turned into a huge sword that was faintly discernible in his father's body. At that moment, Yagyu Ida was both a man and a sword in his eyes. He could not tell if he was a man or a sword. Ha ha! An extremely hearty laughter came from Yagyu Ida's mouth, and the sword shadow on his body disappeared. The price of hiding my sword for 50 years is that I've also hidden my comprehension of the sword for 50 years. I've restrained myself. What a joke. With that, he slowly picked up the Gathering Heavens sword in his hand and threw it directly into the ice cliff. I don't care about this sword anymore. Father, that's... Yagyu Shingen was shocked. That was one of the three divine weapons of Japan, the heavenly sword of clouds. Back then, it had caused a bloodbath for countless people. His father had once regarded it as a treasure, but now, his father had thrown it away. I have to thank that young man from before. He was the one who caused me to suffer a setback. That's why I came to my senses. Yagyu Shingen took a step forward and flew to the peak of the snow. He did not move, like a sharp sword that pierced the clouds. Pass down my order. Invite the number one person in China, Mr. Mad Southern Yi, to fight here in 3 days. Halfway up Mount Fuji, Luo Yao and Tang Jianfeng walked side by side. Luo Yao stopped in her tracks. Suddenly, she looked up at the peak of the mountain as if she had sensed something. She licked the ice cream in her hand and complained, "Damn Feng Feng, look at what you've done." A mistake, it's purely a mistake. Tang Jianfeng was shocked as well. He could only laugh dryly and say, I didn't know that he would be able to recover after being defeated by me. From this, it can be seen that this person is indeed the Japanese sword saint. His talent and comprehension are extraordinary. At the end of his sentence, he said carefully, "Why don't I go back and kill him now?" "Forget it, forget it." Luo Yao rolled her eyes at him and twitched her delicate nose. "I already said that he's Mad Southern Ye's opponent. If you kill him, who will Mad Southern Ye kill? Besides, I want to see if Mad Southern Ye is really as powerful as the rumors say." Just as she was speaking, a young man jumped out of the forest. He knelt on one knee in front of Luo Yao and said respectfully, "Miss, I just received news that Mad Southern Ye has killed his way into the Yamaguchi-gumi to save hundreds of Chinese cultivators." "Interesting. I thought he didn't live up to his name, but now my attitude toward him has changed." Luo Yao's beautiful eyes lit up when she heard that. She could not help but look at Tang Jianfeng. "Xiaofeng, why don't we meet this Mad Southern Ye?" "Forget it." Tang Jianfeng raised his head and looked down the mountain. A hint of admiration flashed across his eyes. Regardless of whether this person's strength is as strong as the rumors say, from the looks of it, he's quite responsible. He's not a disgrace to the Chinese. I'm looking forward to meeting him. At this point, he shook his head slightly. However, he doesn't have the right now. Unless he can defeat Yagyu Ida, he'll have the right to meet me. At the Yamaguchi-gumi headquarters. After the 14 martial Dao masters were killed by Yi Chen, all the forces of the Yamaguchi-gumi suffered a devastating blow at that moment. Only a few ordinary people survived. However, the killing intent in Yi Chen's heart was gone. He turned his head and said to Meng Zixiang and the rest who were stunned, "I said that I'll destroy the Yamaguchi-gumi, so I'll definitely do it. Everyone, kill. Kill." Meng Zixiang and the rest hesitated at first. However, when they thought about what happened to them and Song Jifeng's death, they gritted their teeth and charged at the remaining Yamaguchi-gumi members. As waves of screams rang out, apart from Yamaguchi Aoki, none of the remaining Yamaguchi-gumi members were left. Yi Chen did not think that he had done anything wrong. Putting aside the fact that the Yamaguchi-gumi had offended him, the Yamaguchi-gumi was an illegal organization. Its members were all ferocious Japanese. So what if he killed them? When it was Yamaguchi Aoki's turn, he looked at the Yamaguchi-gumi's 100 years of hard work being wasted and said with a tragic smile, "Mad Southern Ye, I know that I'm going to die for sure. My only request is, can you give me a quick death?" "Alright." Yi Chen flicked his finger and a stream of energy pierced through his forehead. With Yamaguchi Aoki's death, the Yamaguchi-gumi that represented the world was officially removed. At that moment, a young man walked in from outside. He looked at the mess at the scene and said to Yi Chen, "Are you Mad Southern Ye?" Yi Chen said nothing. "I'm a member of the Yagyu family. I'm here to convey a message to you on the orders of the family master. 3 days later, Sword Saint Yagyu Ida invites you to fight on the snowy peak of Mount Fuji." The man seemed to be trembling in fear under Yi Chen's gaze. He did not have much confidence. "As long as you win, we'll release the remaining Chinese cultivators who are imprisoned. We'll also publicly apologize to you." "I'll accept this battle," Yi Chen said slowly in an extremely cold voice. "I'll definitely head to the snowy peak of Mount Fuji in 3 days. Go back and tell everyone in the Yagyu family that I don't need to apologize. I'll definitely kill Yagyu Ida and destroy the Yagyu family. P.S. Today's update for the 3rd chapter has been completed. I'll continue tomorrow. Since I updated so early, give me a monthly vote and a recommendation vote." Chapter 607. The Yagyu family. Not only did they belong to a wealthy family in Japan, but they were also an existence that could be ranked among the top 500 wealthy families in the world. In the history of the Japanese sword Dao, there had been a total of 6 sword saints, and the Yagyu family occupied 3 of them. Most of the descendants of the other 3 sword saints had fallen into desolation and gradually disappeared in the long river of history. Only the Yagyu family had flourished from generation to generation. Especially after Yagyu Ida became the only sword saint in Japan, the Yagyu family's international reputation was like the sun in the sky. Rumor had it that on the day Yagyu Ida became a sword saint, the three Western world giants joined forces and descended to Japan. They wanted to test Yagyu Ida's strength. Who would have thought that Yagyu Ida would rely on himself and his sword to fight the three world giants to a draw at the peak of Tokyo? That battle had completely established Yagyu Ida's position on the world ranking. In the 50 years after Yagyu Ida Tsongjian lived in seclusion on Mount Fuji, no one dared to offend the Yagyu family, let alone Japan. Therefore, Sword Saint Yagyu Ida's reputation in Japan was even greater than the previous 5 sword saints. In the eyes of all the Japanese cultivators, he was a senior, a legend, and someone that everyone tried to surpass. As his opponent, Yi Qin was better in both fame and fame. The reason was that the global cultivation world had been relatively peaceful for the past few decades. The peace was broken with Yi Qin's appearance. In the past year, countless powerhouses had died in Yi Qin's hands. Every time he killed someone, it would cause a huge uproar. Especially the battle between Korea and Inshur some time ago and the destruction of Korea's cultivation world, it had completely pushed him to the top of the world's public opinion. Therefore, after Yi Qin agreed to fight Sword Saint Yagyu Ida, the news was spread to various intelligence agencies through various channels. Then, it spread to their respective countries and forces at an extremely fast speed. In the end, almost the entire world knew of such an explosive news. The China No. 1, Mad Southern Yi, would fight Japanese Sword Saint Yagyu Ida on Mount Fuji in 3 days. Whoosh! As soon as the news spread, the entire Japanese cultivation world was in an uproar. That was because Sword Saint Yagyu Ida's position in their hearts was too high. At the same time, because they were relatively close to China, they had heard too many rumors about Mad Southern Ye's achievements. When they found out that the 2 great experts were about to fight, how could they not be shocked and astounded? This caused countless Japanese experts to head to Mount Fuji in advance, preparing to watch this world-shaking battle from a close distance. The leaders of the Western countries sneered when they heard that. This Mad Southern Yi is a sh*t stir. He just attacked Korea, and now he's going to attack Japan. Don't come to the West and cause trouble again. He dares to come to the West? The East Asian monkeys are naturally thinner and shorter than us. What's more, as long as he dares to come, there's no need for Fire Emperor, Thunder King, or Zeus to make a move. Any expert from the West can kill him. The Chinese cultivation world was next in an uproar. The forum that had finally calmed down because of the incident in Korea became popular again. All the major forums were filled with topics related to Yi Qin. Countless Chinese cultivators swarmed into the forum server. The moderators of the major forums were crying and laughing at the same time. They were crying because the server was almost overcrowded. All sorts of posts were deleted and reviewed in a hurry. They were laughing because Yi Qin's popularity was going to make them rich again. A netizen with the username Yi Family Army Tiny Meatball could not help but post, "Mad Southern Yi went to Japan again? When did that happen? Damn, why did everything change after going to Africa? Aren't you from the Yi Family Army? You don't even know that. It seems like you've only been there for a few days." It's said that Mad Southern Yi almost destroyed the Chiba family as soon as he went there. Later on, he even killed his way into the Hitamoto clan and killed their Shikigami with a single punch. Someone replied in the post. That's not all. According to the latest news, the Yamaguchi Gumi was destroyed by him. He killed all 15 of the Yamaguchi Gumi's retainers. You have to know that those were 15 martial Dao masters. Everyone fell silent. Holy sh*t, that's crazy. You're really a fierce person. You just beat up the Korean powerhouses and made them cry for their parents. In the blink of an eye, you went to Japan. You really can't stop for 15 minutes. Mad Southern Yi should have done this a long time ago. I've long disliked those Japanese grandsons. All of them keep bragging about how they're invincible in the world. A Chinese powerhouse sighed, "He's too valiant. Mad Southern Yi is too valiant. He's going against the heavens. Who can compete with him?" Many netizens who had just returned from climbing the wall posted angrily, "Brothers, the two Koreans next door are clamoring again. They're saying that Mad Southern Yi will die." The netizen called Yi Family Army Tiny Meatball could not hold it in anymore. "Where's the Yi Family Army? Someone is tarnishing the reputation of the Yi Family Army's boss, Mad Southern Yi. Brothers, go to the forum next door and attack them. Let them know how powerful the Yi Family Army is." The Yi Family Army has gone to war. Not a single blade of grass will grow. When countless Chinese cultivators who supported Yi Chen climbed over the wall, they saw a powerhouse from Goguryeo opening a sub-account called Kim Dae-won and pointing out the world on Weibo. The legend of the undefeated Mad Southern is destined to be ended by Yagyu Ida. If you're not convinced, argue. The ones who jumped the most happily were none other than the powerhouses from Korea. Mad Southern Yi will definitely die in this battle. You have to know that the Sword Saint, Yagyu Ida, is a generation earlier than the number one person in Korea, Inshur. Where did Mad Southern Yi get the courage to accept the challenge? To Yi Chen. Could be said that Korea hated him the most. They could not even wait for him to die, because it was such a man who had killed his way into Korea some time ago. Not only did he destroy two wealthy families, he even killed the legend in their hearts, Inshur. After that, Mad Southern Yi even destroyed more than half of the powerhouses from Korea's cultivation world who had gone to watch the battle. He swaggered away, causing the cultivation world of Korea to be unable to recover from this setback. How could they not hate him to the bone? Under the two's Weibo, there were countless Goguryeo and Korean people fighting to top the post. Even if there were some comments from Chinese cultivators, they were quickly drowned out. Seeing these comments, the Chinese cultivation world instantly exploded. Many Chinese cultivators ran to the Weibo of a certain powerhouse from Goguryeo and started cursing. A Chinese cultivator retorted angrily, "Before you say that, look at your neighbor, Korea. Their most powerful person has been killed by Mad Southern Yi. Now, the grass on their graves is 3 feet tall. Do you Goguryeo want Mad Southern Yi to go there as well?" Kim Dae, one of Goguryeo, sneered and personally replied, "That's on the premise that Mad Southern Yi can return from Japan alive. All you guys only know how to act cool on the internet. Anyway, it's not illegal to act cool, but our Yi Family Army doesn't like it." A member of the Yi Family Army was furious. Kim Dae-won shouted, "If you're unhappy, come to Goguryeo and beat me up." Chapter 608. As soon as he replied, the Chinese cultivators exploded. "F***ck, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore with my hot temper. This guy is obviously a smurf, hiding his head and showing his tail. Is there an IT expert who can help us check this guy's IP? I'm going to fly over and give him a good beating. At the same time, I'll use my size 48 shoes to measure how big his face is. Brothers, let's do this to him." At the same time, in a seaside villa along the coast of China. This really pisses me off. This guy called Jin Diyuan is so hateful. Not only did he defame my idol, he even dared to be so arrogant. I'm so angry. A beautiful girl who was dressed like a kawaii threw away the mouse angrily, then stood up and dialed a number. "Dad, lend me those guys from your company's technology department. Why do you care what I use it for? As long as it's useful, that's it. Those dozen guys are taking our annual salary of tens of millions for free. We have to find something for them to do." After hanging up the phone, the beautiful girl's anger subsided a lot. She revealed her snow-white canine teeth. "Humph, how dare you slander my idol? Do you really think that the deputy boss of the Yi Family Army, Tiny Meatball, is made of mud?" In a temple in Tiannan, China, Su Yuhan, who was dressed in plain clothes, stood up and walked out after praying. Yi-Wen, who had been waiting outside, came to her immediately. She pointed at her phone and said happily, "Sister, look. My brother is on the news again." On the news? Su-Yuhan took the phone and took a look. What she saw were a few bold words. The China #1, Mad Southern Yi, will fight the Japanese sword saint, Yagyu Ida, on Mount Fuji in 3 days. This guy went to fight to the death again? The more she looked at it, the more shocked she was. She took out her phone and called Yi Chen. When the call was picked up, she said angrily, "Yi, have you forgotten what you promised me?" Squeak, squeak, squeak. A strange sound came from the phone. "Do you think you're a monkey? Speak human language now. Otherwise, do you believe that I'll skin you alive when you return?" Su-Yuhan was enraged. "You're still squeaking? Do you think that you're a monkey?" Squeak, squeak, squeak. Another series of monkey cries came. Just when Su-Yuhan was about to flare up, the phone was hung up. Su-Yuhan was almost angered to death. "Aya, this guy's got a temper. How dare he hang up on me now? Maybe my brother is joking with you." Yi Chen snickered. "Forget it, I'll deal with him when he comes back." Su-Yuhan shook her head lightly and left the temple with Yi-Wen. She drove to a farmhouse and saw that it was already crowded at the moment. Yi-Wen said as if she was familiar with the place, "Sister, this farmhouse's food is pretty good. They have everything that we usually can't get in the city, such as pheasant and deer. I'm a vegetarian recently, so I'll just eat a bowl of noodles." Su-Yuhan frowned slightly and looked around casually after she sat down. She accidentally saw a birdcage hanging on a tree next to her. There was a bird that looked like an eagle curled up inside. It was shivering and shaking the cage nonstop. At this time, the owner of the farmhouse came out and asked with a smile, "What would you like to eat?" "We have 2 bowls of vegetarian noodles," Yi-Wen said. The owner nodded and was going to leave. However, Su-Yuhan pointed at the birdcage and said, "Is that an eagle, sir?" "No." The owner looked around and said softly, "It's actually a falcon. This feathered animal was caught in the net when my old man went up the mountain to collect the goods this morning. My old man brought it down the mountain to sell it in the city later. I heard it's quite valuable." "A falcon? That's a protected animal. What you guys are doing is illegal." Yi-Wen was shocked. Awkwardness and ferocity flashed through the owner's eyes. Meanwhile, the 2 chefs from the farmhouse walked over slowly. Su-Yuhan's heart sank when she saw the look in his eyes. She said immediately, "Boss, I'll take it. How much is it?" "Sister, selling protected animals is," Yi-Wen advised immediately. "Stop it." Su-Yuhan glared at her. The owner smiled again. "I see that both of you are rich. How about this? $200,000. You guys can have it." Meanwhile, the 2 chefs returned to the house again. Su-Yuhan asked for his card number and took out her phone to call the company's finance department to explain the situation. Soon, the owner of the farmhouse received the money. He took down the birdcage with the bird and handed it to Su-Yuhan. He said while smiling, "Boss, remember to look for me if you need it next time." Su-Yuhan said a few words and drove away after finishing a bowl of noodles in a hurry. She only opened the birdcage when she arrived at a place with nobody around. "Go back to where you came from." The falcon that was initially dying looked at her and eventually struggled to fly out of the birdcage. It flew higher and flew away after circling 3 times above Su-Yuhan's head. "Sister, you've been scammed. That bird is 10,000 yuan at most. Also, I bought it for $200,000. Why you're letting it go just like that?" Yi-Wen was confused throughout the entire process. "I'll tell you when we get back." Su-Yuhan sighed when everyone's attention was focused on this world-shaking battle. Yi Chen, who was far away in Tokyo's Wuyue Taiji Dojo, seemed extremely relaxed. He looked at Song Chia, who was sitting cross-legged in front of him, and said with a smile, "How is it? Have you found the sense of qi?" The so-called qi sense was the ability to sense the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. The path of cultivation was particular about cultivating qi. To cultivate qi, one had to first sense qi before they could absorb it into the body and refine it. The 10-year-old Song Chia followed Yi Chen's method and closed his eyes to sense for a long time. Eventually, he said with a bitter expression, "Master, I can't find it." "It's okay if you can't find it. Take your time. Don't be too hasty. I believe that you will find it one day." Yi Chen comforted him with a smile, but he secretly sighed in his heart. Song Chia's aptitude was too poor. 5 spiritual roots required him to sense 5 types of heaven and earth spiritual energy at the same time. It was extremely difficult for such a person with such aptitude to exist in the cultivation world with abundant spirit qi, let alone on earth where spirit qi was scarce. However, since he had already accepted Song Chia as his disciple, he naturally had to give him a glimmer of hope. It was not good to be too absolute. Relatively speaking, his precious daughter, Mengmeng, had much better aptitude. He had seen Mengmeng's spiritual root before, and she happened to inherit his talent of metal, wood, and fire spiritual roots. This aptitude was not too outstanding, but it was not too mediocre either. It could only be said to be average, at the level of average aptitude. Meanwhile, Yang Tian's son, Yang Hao, had a single spiritual root. Moreover, it was a mutated lightning spiritual root. This kind of aptitude was hard to come by in 100 years. Sometimes, Yi Chen was a little envious of Yang Tian. "Master, I'll work hard." Li Chia nodded obediently. He closed his eyes again and followed the method Yi Chen had taught him to find the sense of qi. His young facial features were very determined. This child has a determined personality. Perhaps he will achieve something in the future. Yi Chen secretly nodded and got up to walk out. He saw the monkey squatting in the corner, squeaking non-stop with its butt sticking out. He then looked at the phone in its hand. The bright screen of the phone showed that it was on a call. The monkey seemed to be talking to someone. It was so excited that it would scratch its ears and cheeks from time to time, jumping up and down. Yi Chen touched his phone subconsciously when he saw that. Subsequently, his expression turned grim. P.S. Chapter 2. There are only 2 chapters today. The main thing is that I'm going to write a fight next. My brain is a little stuck. I hope everyone can let me sort out my thoughts. Thank you. Chapter 609. The monkey saw Yi Chen coming out. He hurriedly hid his phone behind his back with a guilty conscience. His eyeballs kept rolling, and he immediately wanted to run out of the room. "Stop right there." Yi Chen waved his sleeve, and the door closed automatically. He was furious. Even though the monkey hid his phone well, he could still see that the person talking to the monkey was Lan, Mengmeng's former teacher. "Give me back my phone." Yi Chen walked over quickly with a grim expression. The monkey scratched his face and dashed away from him with a whoosh. He was extremely agile like a loach. "How dare you!" Yi Chen scoffed coldly and unleashed his cultivation base directly. He grabbed the monkey's tail forcefully and lifted it upside down. Squeak, squeak, squeak. No matter how it kicked its legs in the air, it was useless. He then snatched the phone away and opened the call log immediately. He felt his vision go black and almost lost his balance. There were hundreds of call records on the screen. There were Su Yuhan, Yang Tian, Lin Tai, Lan, Tang Ning, and even Dai Shiyu from Shanghai. Most of them were women. He couldn't help but imagine a monkey talking to someone on the phone, and the sound it made was squeak, squeak, squeak. Those who did not know would think that Yi Chen had become indecent. Yi Chen was getting more and more shocked as he flipped through the call log. In the end, he stared at the monkey with a fake smile. "How did you steal my phone?" He was truly shocked. Although he did not put his phone in his storage ring and carried it with him, it was difficult for anyone to steal anything from him with his current ability. However, the monkey did it. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The monkey struggled in the air for a few times. After landing on the ground, it walked to the side and picked up a stick. It handed it to Yi Chen respectfully. It then turned around and stuck its butt out at Yi Chen, as if it was saying that it was willing to be punished. Yi Chen looked at the stick that was almost 1/2 meter long, and then at the monkey that was only the size of a palm. Eventually, he said in amusement, "This is the only time. There won't be a next time." The monkey nodded repeatedly and subsequently leaped onto Yi Chen's shoulder. At that moment Yi Chen's phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was Olan. He picked it up after some hesitation. "Ms. O.I. Are you going to tell me that it was a misunderstanding when you called me earlier and squeaked on the phone?" Olan's sweet voice came slowly. Yi Chen said in surprise, "How did you know?" He Olan chuckled and said in an extremely strange tone, "Yi Chen, I can't tell. You're already married, but you're still playing tricks like sexual harassment." "I sexually harassed you?" Yi Chen opened his mouth. "What else can I do? Forget it, I won't argue with you. As Mingming's former teacher, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't flirt with other women behind their back. Although I admit that you are very outstanding, I am not that kind of person." "Alright, that's it. Do. The phone was hung up. Yi Chen almost spat a mouthful of blood. Subsequently, he glared fiercely at the monkey on his shoulder. He even had the urge to kill it. He thought to himself that the misunderstanding had blown up. The monkey had an innocent expression on its face. It seemed to be saying that it did not do or say anything. Moreover, it was speaking monkey language, so the other party could not understand it. Another call came. It was Sun Serong, the daughter of the Medicine King, Sun Zhaoyan. Yi Chen glanced at the monkey with killing intent on his face. He picked up the call anyway. This time, he did not take the initiative to speak. A few seconds later, an unusually shy voice came from the phone. "Mr. Yi, what you said to me just now, is it true?" "What?" Yi Chen was slightly stunned. "That's what I said. Why are you like this? I've already told you, but you're still playing dumb." Sun Serong scolded. "I asked you earlier if you're interested in me, but you kept squeaking and didn't say anything." The killing intent on Yi Chen's body was getting stronger as he listened. Sun Serong took a deep breath in as if she was struggling internally. Eventually, she said in an incomparably firm manner, "I know that you're thin-skinned and shy, so I told you to squeak twice if you like me. If you don't like me, squeak thrice. But you squeaked twice." Yi Chen was speechless. "Mr. Yi, I've thought about it and told my dad. My dad said that it's fine for a powerhouse like you to have 3 or 4 wives. Moreover, I really like you. So my dad has already gone to prepare the dowry. Do you think we should pick a better day, beep?" Before she could finish speaking, Yi Chen hung up the phone with a thud. The veins on his face bulged as he looked at the monkey with a murderous aura. However, the monkey tiptoed through a crack in the door and slipped out. This evil creature, this misunderstanding has really blown up. Yi Chen gritted his teeth in anger. Just when he wanted to chase after it and capture it to settle the score, the phone rang again. His heart tightened and he looked over by instinct. Fortunately, it was not Sun Serong. It was Yang Tian. "Old Yi, what's wrong with you? You keep calling me. You don't say anything even when you call. You keep squeaking. Are you possessed by Brother Monkey? I was almost killed by you. I followed old Nyo to carry out a mission to kill a scum from Shang Santian. We were in the middle of a fierce battle, but you kept calling me." Yang Tian could not stop complaining to Yi Chen as soon as he opened his mouth. Clearly, he had been tortured by the monkey. Of course, the monkey had called him more than 10 times. "It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding." Yi Chen shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He then asked, "How are you and Lin Tai doing? You didn't break your arms or legs, did you?" "Not really." Yang Tian grinned. "This method of yours is really useful. Tai and I have improved rapidly in the past 2 days. However, old Nyo said that the other party's powerhouses are probably going to enter the world soon. It'll be very chaotic. Old Nyo wants you to return home after you finish fighting that Japanese sword saint." He wants to do something big with you. Do something big? Yi Chen thought to himself, but he did not ask in detail. He hung up the phone after learning more about the situation with Yang Tian. Are there any more powerhouses from Shang Santian going to enter the world? Could it be a Martial Dao Venerable? Yi Chen stood up and looked at China from afar. He thought to himself as his eyes flickered, I don't care what kind of powerhouses you guys are. It's fine if everyone is fine, but if you guys don't know what's good for you, then don't blame me for imitating the previous Dragon Soul Dragon King and charging into Kunlun with my sword to block your exit. I'll kill whoever comes. Chapter 610. Just when he was thinking about it, Su Yuhan called. Yi Chen felt guilty. He said while smiling after picking up the call, Honey, it's only been 2 days. Are you missing me already? Miss you? I want to punch you. Su Yuhan chuckled. Yi, you're really something. You caused such a huge commotion on your trip to Japan. You even want to fight the Japanese sword saint to death. Are you trying to scare your parents and I out of our wits? Did Dad and Mom find out? Yi Chen was a little worried. I'm not sure if my parents know. I'm outside with Yiwen now. I plan to go to a temple on Yaoshan to burn incense. Go to a temple to burn incense. Yi Chen set in between tears and laughter. No, have you forgotten who your husband is? He actually believes in Buddhism like other people, and even has to go all the way to burn incense. You didn't listen to me either. You went around killing and killing. Su Yuhan complained. I heard that the temple is quite efficacious. Let's give it a try. There's nothing to lose even if it's not efficacious. Also, I need you. Our daughter's birthday is in a few days. I'll repeat myself. You must come back before our daughter's birthday. Definitely, definitely. Yi Chen hung up after chatting with her for a while. He was still a little worried, so he contacted Insher and asked her to protect Su Yuhan secretly to prevent any accidents from happening. As the #1 person in Taibang, there were not many people in China who could defeat Insher. At first, Yaoshan referred to a celestial mountain, but later it evolved into a place where the Yao people gathered. The place where the Yao people lived was called Yaoshan Village. Below Yaoshan, a red Porsche was parked by the roadside. Yiwen, who was in the passenger seat, turned her head and said to an older guide behind her, Master Hu, the Puhong temple that you mentioned is in the mountain, right? Yes, but the mountain road is not easy to walk on. I'm afraid your car won't be able to drive in. After you get off, you'll have to walk for 20 kilometers, the guide explained slowly. I'm fine. Su Yuhan opened the car door and took out the things she had prepared from the trunk. She glanced at Yaoshan before her and mumbled to herself, If there's really a Buddha in this world, I only hope that the person I love can be safe and my family can live an ordinary and happy life. Sister, if I knew this would happen, we should have brought a bodyguard. It's too heavy, and we still have to walk 20 kilometers. It's too much. Yiwen kept cupping her fists while carrying a bag. Let's go. Su Yuhan glanced at her helplessly. She shook her head after locking the car and walked towards the mountain road. At that moment, a sound similar to an eagle's cry came from the sky. The three of them raised their heads and saw a large bird circling above their heads with its wings spread out. From time to time, it would let out a series of cries. Yiwen exclaimed, Sister, look. Isn't that the falcon that we released earlier? Yang, Wyatt, Su Yuhan up with one up, Su you up, you who I who that. I don't know. But why is it following us? Yiwen shook her head in confusion. Maybe it's to repay a favor. Su Yuhan smiled sweetly and said without thinking, Even a bird knows how to repay a favor. I'm starting to believe in karma and good and evil now. Just as she was talking, she heard a gunshot. It was the guide next to her holding a gunpowder gun and firing at the falcon in the air. However, he didn't hit it. The falcon was frightened and flew away. Uncle Hu Weu. Yiwen glared at him. The tour guide shook his head and said, You guys don't know this. This kind of bird isn't popular in our area. They often go to the village to catch chicks to eat. Moreover, I scared it away on purpose. What if you killed it? Yiwen was a little unconvinced. Forget it, let's go. Su Yuhan took one last good look in the direction where the falcon disappeared. She walked in front with the things in her hand. Yi Chen stayed with his disciple, Song Chia, for the past 3 days. He taught him some cultivation things. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On the morning of the 3rd day, countless people rushed to Mount Fuji in advance. There were many Japanese, Chinese, and even people from Western countries. Almost all of them rushed over from all over the world. After all, this battle involved the number 1 person in China and the only sword saint in Japan. The battle between 2 world-class giants was not an exaggeration to say that it was a rare event that only happened once in 100 years in the world. No one would give up on such a shocking scene. It also caused the population of Japan to increase drastically, putting pressure on the Japanese officials. They had also prepared various emergency measures in advance. Yi Chen saw many people outside after pushing the door open. Standing at the front were Chiba Yoshiko, Miyamoto Take, Meng Zixiang, Chen Shui, Wu Hong, and the rest. There were a few unfamiliar faces among them. The auras in their bodies were surging, and they were all martial Dao masters. Before Yi Chen could speak, the few unfamiliar faces bowed to Yi Chen and said while clasping their fists, "Greetings, Mr. Yi." As if sensing his confusion, the leading old man in black introduced himself. "Mr. Yi, I'm Lu Chongkong, a second-generation disciple of China's Wudong sect. Thank you, Mr. Yi, for avenging my junior brother, Song Jifeng. You've also saved the last bit of our Wudong sect's dignity." At this point, he looked at the few people behind him and said, "I heard that Mr. Yi is representing the Chinese cultivation world to fight the Japanese sword saint, Yagyu Ida. I've brought a few people here to cheer for Yi Chen." As soon as he said that, a middle-aged man in an official robe walked out from behind him. Sect Master Wu Lianji of 8 Extremes Fist greets Mr. Yi. Sect Master Yang Beitao of Form Intention Fist greets Mr. Yi. Another man stepped forward. Fan Xianbing of Hong Sect greets Mr. Yi. Shui Guanglin of Northern Hubei greets Mr. Yi. Yu Qing of Jiaxing greets Mr. Yi. At that moment, a total of 8 martial Dao masters walked to Yi Chen and bowed. Chiba Yoshiko and Miyamoto Take's hearts skipped a beat. There were a total of 8 martial Dao masters from China for this battle. Lu Chongkong said, "Mr. Yi, Song Jifeng was originally a disciple of our Wudong sect. Logically speaking, my master should be here. However, my master is already over 120 years old. He's getting old, so he asked me to bring a message to you." "What is it?" Yi Chen was surprised. Lu Chongkong took a deep breath in and said slowly, "There are many heroes in Yanwang. They are not afraid to fight 100 people alone. They will take revenge. Look at the blood of our Chinese men." After saying that, he clasped his fists at Yi Chen and bowed 90 degrees. "Mr. Yi, please." Bang bang bang. "Mr. Yi, please. Mr. Yi, please." The 8 Chinese masters who had rushed over to cheer cupped their fists in unison and shouted loudly. It was like muffled thunder that echoed in the air. Yi Chen was also affected. He laughed out loud and said, "Everyone, believe me. I naturally won't disappoint you. Yagyu Ida will definitely die in this battle. P.S. There's still one more chapter. I'm not done yet. I'll update later." Chapter 611. The Yagyu family. Not only did they belong to a wealthy family in Japan, but they were also in existence that could be ranked among the top 500 wealthy families in the world. In the history of the Japanese sword Dao, there had been a total of 6 sword saints, and the Yagyu family occupied 3 of them. Most of the descendants of the other 3 sword saints had fallen into desolation and gradually disappeared in the long river of history. Only the Yagyu family had flourished from generation to generation. Especially after Yagyu Ida became the only sword saint in Japan, the Yagyu family's international reputation was like the sun in the sky. Rumor had it that on the day Yagyu Ida became a sword saint, the three Western world giants joined forces and descended to Japan. They wanted to test Yagyu Ida's strength. Who would have thought that Yagyu Ida would rely on himself and his sword to fight the three world giants to a draw at the peak of Tokyo? That battle had completely established Yagyu Ida's position on the world ranking. In the 50 years after Yagyu Ida Tsongjian lived in seclusion on Mount Fuji, no one dared to offend the Yagyu family, let alone Japan. Therefore, Sword Saint Yagyu Ida's reputation in Japan was even greater than that of the previous 5 sword saints. In the eyes of all the Japanese cultivators, he was a senior, a legend, and someone that everyone tried to surpass. As his opponent, Yi Qin was better in both fame and fame. The reason was that the global cultivation world had been relatively peaceful for the past few decades. The peace was broken with Yi Qin's appearance. In the past year, countless powerhouses had died in Yi Qin's hands. Every time he killed someone, it would cause a huge uproar. Especially the battle between Korea and Inshur some time ago and the destruction of Korea's cultivation world, it had completely pushed him to the top of the world's public opinion. Therefore, after Yi Qin agreed to fight Sword Saint Yagyu Ida, the news was spread to various intelligence agencies through various channels. Then, it spread to their respective countries and forces at an extremely fast speed. In the end, almost the entire world knew of such an explosive news. The China No. 1, Mad Southern Yi, would fight Japanese Sword Saint Yagyu Ida on Mount Fuji in 3 days. Whoosh! As soon as the news spread, the entire Japanese cultivation world was in an uproar. That was because Sword Saint Yagyu Ida's position in their hearts was too high. At the same time, because they were relatively close to China, they had heard too many rumors about Mad Southern Ye's achievements. When they found out that the 2 great experts were about to fight, how could they not be shocked and astounded? This caused countless Japanese experts to head to Mount Fuji in advance, preparing to watch this world-shaking battle from a close distance. The leaders of the Western countries sneered when they heard that. This Mad Southern Yi is a sh*t stir. He just attacked Korea, and now he's going to attack Japan. Don't come to the West and cause trouble again. He dares to come to the West? The East Asian monkeys are naturally thinner and shorter than us. What's more, as long as he dares to come, there's no need for Fire Emperor, Thunder King, or Zeus to make a move. Any expert from the West can kill him. The Chinese cultivation world was next in an uproar. The forum that had finally calmed down because of the incident in Korea became popular again. All the major forums were filled with topics related to Yi Qin. Countless Chinese cultivators swarmed into the forum server. The moderators of the major forums were crying and laughing at the same time. They were crying because the server was almost overcrowded. All sorts of posts were deleted and reviewed in a hurry. They were laughing because Yi Qin's popularity was going to make them rich again. A netizen with the username Yi Family Army Tiny Meatball could not help but post, "Mad Southern Yi went to Japan again? When did that happen? Damn, why did everything change after going to Africa? Aren't you from the Yi Family Army? You don't even know that. It seems like you've only been there for a few days." It's said that Mad Southern Yi almost destroyed the Chiba family as soon as he went there. Later on, he even killed his way into the Hitamoto clan and killed their Shikigami with a single punch. Someone replied in the post. That's not all. According to the latest news, the Yamaguchi Gumi was destroyed by him. He killed all 15 of the Yamaguchi Gumi's retainers. You have to know that those were 15 martial Dao masters. Everyone fell silent. Holy sh*t, that's crazy. You're really a fierce person. You just beat up the Korean powerhouses and made them cry for their parent. In the blink of an eye, you went to Japan. You really can't stop for 15 minutes. Mad Southern Yi should have done this a long time ago. I've long disliked those Japanese grandsons. All of them keep bragging about how they're invincible in the world. A Chinese powerhouse sighed, he's too valiant. Mad Southern Yi is too valiant. He's going against the heavens. Who can compete with him? Many netizens who had just returned from climbing the wall posted angrily, brothers, the two Koreans next door are clamoring again. They're saying that Mad Southern Yi will die. The netizen called Yi Family Army Tiny Meatball could not help but ask, where's the Yi Family Army? Someone is tarnishing the reputation of the Yi Family Army's boss, Mad Southern Yi. Brothers, go to the forum next door and attack them. Let them know how powerful the Yi Family Army is. The Yi Family Army has gone to war. Not a single blade of grass will grow. When countless Chinese cultivators who supported Yi Chen climbed over the wall, they saw a powerhouse from Goguryeo opening a sub-account called Kim Dae-won and pointing out the world on Weibo. The legend of the undefeated Mad Southern is destined to be ended by Yagyu Ida. If you're not convinced, argue. The ones who jumped the most happily were none other than the powerhouses from Korea. Mad Southern Yi will definitely die in this battle. You have to know that the Sword Saint, Yagyu Ida, is a generation earlier than the number one person in Korea, Inshur. Where did Mad Southern Yi get the courage to accept the challenge? To Yi Chen. Could be said that Korea hated him the most. They could not wait for him to die because it was such a man who had killed his way into Korea some time ago. Not only did he destroy two wealthy families, he even killed the legend in their hearts, Inshur. After that, Mad Southern Yi even destroyed more than half of the powerhouses from Korea's cultivation world who had gone to watch the battle. He swaggered away, causing the cultivation world of Korea to be in chaos. Chapter 6:12. Yagyu Ida, I'm here to kill you. The sudden voice sounded like thunder in everyone's ears. It was like a thunderclap that exploded in everyone's ears. The China number one, Mad Southern Yi, is here. The battle between the two world-class giants is about to begin. I'd like to see what this legendary undefeatable Mad Southern looks like. Does he really have 3 heads and 6 arms like the rumors say? He can scare babies so much that they don't dare to cry in the middle of the night? Whoosh! At that moment, the originally calm Mount Fuji seemed to have been poured down from the sky. Everyone looked back in the direction of the voice. Be it the ordinary people present or the world-class giants from all over the world, they all looked over without exception. Is he here? Luo Yao's beautiful eyes could not help but size up the foot of the mountain. Even Tang Jianfeng, who was next to her, was no exception. His expression became solemn and expectant. Mad Southern Yi, I hope you won't disappoint me and Yao Yao. After all, you're the first person Yao Yao has been interested in since she came to the world. At that moment, under the snowstorm, a black shadow slowly walked over from the mountainside. Upon closer inspection, it was a young man in black with ordinary facial features. The young man had his hands behind his back and was walking at a steady pace. There was a palm-sized jade-green monkey standing on his back. Is this Mad Southern Yi? In an instant, countless gazes looked at the young man in black. Their eyes flickered with shock, bewilderment, and disappointment. Luo Yao and Tang Jianfeng were the most shocked. The moment the two of them saw Yi Chen, they looked at each other at the same time. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. He's Mad Southern Yi? Xiaofeng, he's Mad Southern Yi? Luo Yao repeated in disbelief and said, Isn't he the Yi Chen we met on the cruise ship? If you ask me, who should I ask? Tang Jianfeng rolled his eyes and looked at Yi Chen again. He frowned and said after sizing him up, Maybe he's not. Mad Southern Yi should be behind us. He could not accept that Yi Chen was Mad Southern Yi. That's good. You really scared me to death. Otherwise, I would have thought that we made a mistake on the cruise ship. Luo Yao heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Seeing that Yi Chen was walking over and seemed to be going deeper, she waved and said, Yi Chen. Yi Chen was slightly stunned. He then walked over while smiling and said in surprise, "Why are you guys here?" Seeing this, the people at the side retracted their gazes in disappointment. A Western powerhouse looked at Yi Chen and berated him coldly. "Brat, do you know how to walk?" "Of course I walked." Yi Chen glanced at him. That person immediately flew into a rage. Forget it. Why bother with an ordinary person?" His friend stopped him immediately and looked at Yi Chen. "Sir, everyone thought you were mad Southern Yi just now, so it's inevitable that they're a little upset. I hope you don't mind." Yi Chen's expression froze. "What do you mean by treating me as mad Southern Yi?" Luo Yao circled around him a few times with a strange expression on her face. She was speechless. "Yi Chen, why are you, an ordinary person, here to watch the battle? Don't you think it's dangerous?" Just when Yi Chen was about to speak, he saw her waving her hand. "Forget it. We met on the cruise ship after all. Since you're here, just watch. With Xiao Feng and me here, I guarantee that you won't be affected at all." After saying that, she turned to Tang Jianfeng and said, "Right, Xiao Feng?" Tang Jianfeng glanced at Yi Chen coldly. However, he still reminded him, "There are many people here. If you don't want anything to happen, stay behind us. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." Yi Chen was speechless. Seeing that he was silent, Luo Yao thought that Tang Jianfeng's words were a little harsh. She immediately smiled and said, "Xiaofeng's like that. He's cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Just get used to it." At that moment, a Japanese powerhouse could not hold it in anymore. "Can you guys shut up? Mad Southern Yi is about to appear, so why are you still whispering to each other?" Luo Yao's gaze turned cold. Just as she was about to flare up, she seemed to have thought of something and smiled. "Since I'm in a good mood, I won't argue with you." After saying that, she looked at the foot of the mountain. In an instant, the calm atmosphere was restored. Everyone stared at the foot of the mountain with anticipation written all over their faces. Yi Chen lifted his eyes and looked around. In the end, his gaze landed on the white-clothed figure on the peak of the snow. He was secretly surprised. Is this the Japanese sword saint Yagyu Ida? He actually comprehended the concept of a heavy sword without a sharp edge and great skill. As the saying went, a heavy sword without a sharp edge and great skill referred to the fact that the person who used the sword had already broken away from the obsession with the sword. He was no longer restricted to the so-called sword technique. The edge of the sword had reached a natural state. When his gaze landed on the ground, his expression gradually turned cold. He saw Chen Lu lying in the snow unconscious. His hands and feet were covered in blood. Clearly, he had been tortured. Yi Chen took a step forward and walked slowly toward Chen Lu. Luo Yao was shocked. "Yi Chen, what are you doing?" Yi Chen said nothing, but the killing intent in him was getting more intense. As he walked, he attracted the attention of countless people. Seeing that his target was Chen Lu, many people exclaimed, "What is that brat doing? There's a battle ahead. Please stop." 3 Japanese soldiers in uniform stepped forward to stop him. Yi Chen pierced through their bodies directly, and their bodies exploded. Whoosh! Everyone was in an uproar. Someone dared to kill in Japan. Luo Yao's pretty face changed after witnessing the 3 Japanese soldiers' bodies explode. Yi Chen, could he really be? A gleam flashed through Tang Jianfeng's eyes. Facing everyone's shock, Yi Chen did not stop walking. After walking to Chen Lu's side, he slowly inserted a medicinal pill into his body to help him recover quickly. "How dare you kill the Japanese? You're too arrogant. I, Yagyu Shinyo, shall grant you the death penalty today." Yagyu Shinyo, who had rushed over after hearing the commotion, had a grim expression on his face. He slashed his sword at Yi Chen's head, his body filled with cold, killing intent. At that moment, Chen Lu, who had fainted, slowly opened his eyes. After seeing Yi Chen, he immediately stood up and knelt on one knee. "Chen Lu of the form and will fist greets Mr. Yi. I'm late. I've made you suffer." Yi Chen sighed softly. "No. Chen Lu shook his head repeatedly and said with tears in his eyes, Mr. Yi, Chen Lu knew that you would definitely come. It's because you're the China #1, mad Southern Yi. His voice was neither loud nor soft, but each and every word was powerful and sonorous, reaching everyone's ears without missing a single word. Dead silence. At that moment, the world was dead silent. Everyone's expressions froze one after another. They stared blankly at the skinny figure, feeling shocked. So, he really was mad Southern Yi. Chapter 6:13. So he really is mad Southern Yi. Luo Yao mumbled to herself as she looked at the ordinary figure. She felt her face burning. When she first met Yi Chen on the cruise ship, she felt that he had an extraordinary bearing. He was neither servile nor overbearing when he spoke to her. However, she did not associate him with a cultivator because she did not sense any cultivation aura from him. It was funny. Mad Southern Yi was right before them, but she was discussing Mad Southern Yi with Tang Jianfeng in front of him. The second time they met was now. She thought that Yi Chen was here to watch the earth-shattering battle. She even kindly said that she wanted to take care of Yi Chen's safety. She felt her ears burning as she thought to this point. She was furious. This guy really knows how to hide. He kept us in the dark from the beginning. To think that we, just as I expected. Tang Jianfeng squinted and took a good look at Yi Chen. He had some doubts the moment Yi Chen walked toward Chen Lu. He did not expect it to be true. Even so, there was still a ripple in his heart. But why didn't I sense any cultivation aura from him from the beginning? Could he have cultivated an aura concealment technique? At the same time, Yagyu Shinyo's blade stopped in midair when it was about to touch Yi Chen. At that moment, he stared blankly at Yi Chen. His mind was buzzing like a bolt from the blue. Why, you're mad Southern Yi? Yi Chen glanced at him coldly. What did you say your name was? Meeting his gaze, Yagyu Shinyo's heart skipped a beat, and he could not help but take a step back. He had fantasized countless times about killing Mad Southern Yi with a single strike. However, when he was really facing Mad Southern Yi, he was horrified to realize he did not even have the strength to speak. It was as if the young man's every word and action, and even his gaze, could bring him immense pressure. Even his father, Yagyu Ida, did not have such pressure. Seeing this scene, the people around them secretly sighed. They thought to themselves that he was indeed worthy of being the #1 person in China, but his bearing made Yagyu Shinyo tremble with fear. At this moment, Chiba Yoshiko, Meng Zixiang, and the rest slowly arrived at the scene. In the crowd, Chen Shui saw Chen Lu and immediately rushed over, crying, "Dad, are you okay?" "Silly girl, what can happen to Dad? Besides, Mr. Yi is here." Chen Lu wiped the tears off her face with a pained expression. "Thank you, Mr. Yi." Chen Shui knelt before Yi Chen with a thud and said with tears in her eyes, "Thank you for saving my father. I apologize for my reckless behavior earlier." "Don't worry." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. The moment the man beside Wu Hong saw Yagyu Shinyang, the veins on his forehead popped out. "Yagyu Shinyang, return old Fifth's arm." "Mr. Yi, he was the one who cut off Uncle Wu's arm." Most of the cultivators in China were also captured by him. Chen Shui also looked at Yagyu Shinyang with hatred. Yi Chen took a step forward. Intense killing intent locked onto Yagyu Shinyang. "Yagyu Shinyang, I remember you. You captured many cultivators in China. Today, I'll use your blood to sacrifice the dignity of the Chinese cultivation world." No. Yagyu Shinyang wanted to retreat. However, at this moment, a large hand grabbed at him. The sound of flesh and bone being torn apart was heard. An arm was thrown into the air with blood spraying out. At this moment, Yagyu Shinyang screamed repeatedly. His voice was extremely tragic, and scarlet blood spurted out from the severed arm. Such a bloody scene made many people's faces turn pale. "You owe Wu Hong this arm." However, the coldness in Yi Chen's eyes did not diminish. He extended his palm and tore off another of Yagyu Shinyang's arms. Pain. The pain was extreme. Yagyu Shinyang felt that there was not a single part of his body that did not hurt. Every pore and cell was twitching. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that he would be treated like this one day. This is what you owe the Form Intention Boxing Dojo. Yi Chen took another step forward. As if sensing his killing intent, Yagyu Shinyang hurriedly shouted with all his might, "Stop him, stop him!" At the same time, he ran for his life towards the snowy peak. At that moment, he finally knew what fear was. Yi Chen was his fear. As one of the 4 Japanese sword Tao masters, he was the person closest to the sword saint. However, he could not resist Yi Chen at all. No one can save someone that I, Yi Chen, want to kill. Yi Chen smirked in disdain and leaped out. Countless powerhouses from the Yagyu family dashed out as if they wanted to stop him. "Those who stand in my way will die," Yi Chen shouted. Spiritual energy surged in his hand as he twisted his fingers into a saber. The killing intent in his heart was completely released. The saber chi streaked across the air, and along with waves of screams, countless people were cut into half. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere, and flesh and blood flew everywhere. At that moment, he was not like he was in China. In his eyes, there was no innocent or not, only enemies. The entire sword peak was silent. Everyone watched as Yi Chen charged through the crowd like the reincarnation of a god of death. Every step he took, 10 corpses would appear on the ground. Countless powerhouses were terrified, killing 10 people with one step, killing 10 people with one step. As expected of mad Southern Yi. He's too ruthless. It's better not to provoke him. How was he human? He was clearly a god of death, a butcher. In the end, Yagyu Shinyo, who had lost his arms, was cut off by Yi Chen. He shuddered, then looked in the direction of the snowy peak and shouted, "Father, save me, save me. I don't want to die." At the next moment, a shocking sword chime came from the snowy peak, followed by a monstrous sword intent. "Mad Southern Yi, that's enough. Your opponent is me. Old thing, you finally can't take it anymore?" Yi Chen scoffed and slapped Yagyu Shinyang. Impudent! Seeing that he still wanted to kill Yagyu Shinyang, Yagyu Ida was furious. A 3-meter sword gleam condensed in his hand. The sword gleam turned into a sword gleam and slashed at Yi Chen's hand like a silver snake. In his opinion, Yi Chen would definitely stop facing his sword attack. Unexpectedly, Yi Chen advanced instead of retreating. He sped up and slapped Yagyu Shinyang as if he would not stop until he was dead. Clang! A loud bang was heard. Yi Chen took 3 steps back instantly. Meanwhile, Yagyu Ida in front of him had already turned into a bloody mist. Whoosh! The surroundings were in an uproar. No one expected Yi Chen to dare to take the risk and kill Yagyu Shinyang with a palm strike when Yagyu Ida attacked. Shock flashed through Yagyu Ida's eyes. He did not expect Yi Chen to take his sword attack head-on with his physical body. Although he did not unleash his full power earlier, it was enough to cut a mountain. However, Yi Chen was completely fine. Yi Chen bowed slightly and exerted force from his waist. He shot into the sky like an arrow that was ready to be shot. His long hair fluttered in the wind. At the same time, his indifferent voice resounded throughout the world, "Old thing, Yagyu Shinyang is dead. It's your turn now." Chapter 6:14. Old thing, Yagyu Shinyo is dead. It's your turn now. Yi Chen stood quietly in the air. The wind and snow blew his long hair up, revealing a rather ordinary face. However, it was this face that could not be any more ordinary, but it was like a towering mountain, giving people a feeling of looking up to it. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked at Yagyu Ida. His killing intent was as shocking as the depths of hell. Yagyu Ida stood on the snowy peak opposite him. His expression was equally calm. He did not look like the so-called Japanese sword saint. Instead, he looked like a scholar with an extraordinary temperament. The two of them looked at each other. It was as if in their eyes, There was only themselves and their opponent left in this world. There was no one else, and everything in the outside world had nothing to do with them. As soon as their gazes met, an invisible killing intent suddenly filled the air. At the same time, the wind became stronger, and the snow became thicker. The snowflakes fell heavier and heavier. In the end, they covered all the footprints left behind by the people on the ground. The sound of wind and moon became louder and louder, as if they were crying for this earth-shattering battle. Many ordinary people subconsciously shivered. They shrunk their necks and kept blowing air into their hands. Their faces were pale from the cold. Cold. It was bone-chilling. The cold was sudden and strange. In the eyes of many experts, they were filled with deep astonishment. Because before the battle began, they could already feel the murderous aura from the snowstorm. A monstrous, murderous aura. The sudden drop in temperature on Mount Fuji was caused by the killing intent. Just the killing intent that was emitted could do this. If the two of them fought, the scene would be unimaginable. Are the two powerhouses finally going to fight? No matter who wins this battle, it's destined to be recorded in history. At that moment, the thousands of people on Mount Fuji raised their heads and looked at the two figures. Their eyes shone with different colors, but most of them were filled with anticipation. At that moment, the entire Mount Fuji was silent. The people of the Japanese cultivation world subconsciously clenched their fists and raised their eyes to look at their Japanese legend. They firmly believed that the Sword Saint would win this battle, even if his opponent was Mad Southern Yi. On the other hand, Chen Shui, Chen Lu, and the others from China held their breath. These two people represented the pinnacle battle between Japan and China. They had extremely different meanings. Even Luo Yao and Tang Jianfeng remained silent. A few seconds later, Yagyu Ida stared at Yi Chen and broke the silence. Young. Rumor has it that the number one person in China, Mad Southern Yi, is less than 30 years old. I didn't believe it before, but now that I've seen it, I have no choice but to believe it. Yi Chen said nothing. His eyes were as cold as a knife. Yagyu Ida suddenly let out a long sigh. You're a genius of mankind. In time, you might truly be able to stand at the peak of the world. As an opponent, I don't want to be your enemy, much less kill you. There was no falsehood in his expression, as if it came from the bottom of his heart. However, between us, it's no longer limited to personal grudges. It has risen to the level of a nation and even a country. Don't worry, you're destined to die today. Yi Chen chuckled softly. The coldness in his eyes did not show any signs of fading. Mad Southern Yi, you're as arrogant as the rumors say. Yagyu Ida was not angry. Instead, he laughed out loud and said, Perhaps you've never tasted defeat since you debuted in China. That's why you're so arrogant. However, that's because you've never met anyone stronger. For example, the battle between martial venerables. Space tremors and oceans flow at every turn. Another example is the battle between origin energy powerhouses. There are countless supernatural powers and dharma spells. Those powerhouses are stronger than everyone you've killed, including the god Shikigami from the Hidemoto clan. At this point, he took a deep breath in and said in a powerful voice, I forgot to tell you that apart from cultivating the sword, I'm also an ancient martial artist. 3 days ago, I was lucky enough to break through to the martial venerable stage. At the same time, I had an epiphany on the sword Dao. Therefore, you're no match for me. Today, I'll use your blood to test my sword. He suddenly took a step forward, and a shocking sword intent spread out from his body. In an instant, sword intent filled the sky. Countless sword chi crisscrossed around him, causing the air around him to tremble. In everyone's eyes, Yagyu Ida seemed to have turned into a gigantic sword that kept spitting out sword gleams towards the world. The sword chi crisscrossed the world, shattering all the wind and snow. That was the Sword Saint Yagyu Ida's sword Dao. As someone from the Yagyu family, which was a family of 3 generations of sword saints in Japan and the only sword saint in Japan, His sword Dao had already reached the acme of perfection. Boom! An incomparably dazzling bolt of lightning streaked across the sky. Everyone subconsciously closed their eyes. When they looked again, they saw a sword gleam streak across the sky, cutting through the wind, snow, and air. It swept towards Yi Chen with an extremely sharp, killing aura. The sword had yet to arrive. The sword Qi had already torn the wind and snow around Yi Chen apart. Facing his sword, Yi Chen did not move at all. There was no spiritual power flowing in his body at all. He merely glanced at the sword gleam that was coming at him. Just one glance. A golden flame suddenly lit up in his eyes. Following that, a golden pillar of light shot out from his eyes and directly faced Yagyu Aida's sword gleam. Bang! With an explosion, a huge ball of flames erupted in the air. When they looked again, Yagyu Aida's sword Qi was directly shattered. Is this a divinity? Yagyu Aida's expression changed slightly when he saw that. The fear he had for Yi Chen increased again. Subsequently, he said while grinning coldly, "So what if you know a divinity? My sword has killed God Ascension cultivators before." At the next moment, he reached out and grabbed at the air. With a loud bang, he formed a sword with his Qi. The sword flickered with silver light and was extremely sharp. A terrifying sword Qi whistled out from it. "Mad Southern Yi, this is the 4 fast swords that I created myself." Yagyu Aida roared and slashed out once again. This was his true strength as a sword saint. He had no doubt that his sword could split any mountain in half. He believed that no matter how strong Yi Chen's physical body was, he would not dare to take it head-on. With that strike, the sword gleam expanded to over 30 meters. It charged at Yi Chen like a giant silver dragon. Yi Chen lifted his head. A shocking aura exploded from his body immediately. Eventually, he charged at the monstrous sword Qi. What is he doing? Is he trying to take the sword saint's sword head-on? Damn, is he crazy? One must know that the power contained in the sword saint's sword is enough to split a river. He's not retreating but advancing instead. Everyone on the ground cried out in shock seeing Yi Chen's intention. They thought that Yi Chen had really gone mad. Chapter 6:15. At the next moment, Yi Chen seemed to have transformed into a god of war as he charged at the monstrous sword Qi directly. He raised his right palm and charged at it. One palm held up the sky. The terrifying sword Qi landed on his hand, but he remained motionless. He bent his fingers and clenched his palm into a fist. The sword Qi was actually caught in his hand. Not only is he fine, he even caught the sword saint's sword Qi with his bare hands? How is this possible? How can his hand be so powerful? Could it be made of diamond? No, even if it's made of diamond, it would shatter under the sword saint's sword. As expected of Mad Southern Yi from China. He's so terrifying. At that moment there was an uproar on the ground. Everyone was so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. They felt that the scene before them had completely shattered their understanding. There was actually someone who could borrow sword Qi with his bare hands. Amazing, amazing! Luo Yao, who was initially planning to watch the show, could not help but nod. She praised without holding back. Yi Chen's move is amazing. Even in my family, no one can do that. If it were me, I would have shattered it at most, but I wouldn't be able to catch it. Tang Jianfeng squinted as he sized Yi Chen up. Deep confusion flashed through his eyes. Why is this person's physical body so powerful? Could he have cultivated a body-tempering method before? But where did the people of the secular world get a body-tempering method? When he saw this, he felt that he could no longer see through Yi Chen. Yi Chen had truly shocked him. How is this possible? Yagyu Aida was extremely shocked. Even the Western Titan, who was the best at body tempering and had invincible physical bodies, would not dare to take his attack head-on, right? However, not only did Yi Chen do it, he even caught his sword Qi. Is this your true ability? Yi Chun grabbed the sword Qi with one hand and lifted his head to look at him. A hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his lips. If that's the case, then you've disappointed me. Bang! With a loud bang, the sword Qi in his hand was forcefully crushed, turning into countless chaotic air currents that swept in all directions. Yagyu Shingen took a step back in shock. His eyes were filled with shock as he looked at Yi Chun. His expression gradually turned grim. Everyone stared at the two of them, and the shock in their hearts did not diminish. Tang Jianfeng slowly said, Yagyu Shingen is going to show his true strength. Luo Yao, who was beside him, looked at Yagyu Shingen in the sky and said thoughtfully, Is this the Yagyu family's so-called killing gods Single Slash and Snow of the World? Not bad. Tang Jianfeng nodded slightly and said, Rumor has it that the killing gods Single Slash and Snow of the World were created by the second sword saint of the Yagyu family, Yagyu Jubamit. It can be said to be the ultimate skill of the Yagyu family. After hundreds of years, it has been continuously perfected by countless outstanding descendants of the Yagyu family. At this point, he paused and said, Before the killing god's single chop was perfected, Yagyu Jubai once split a 10-feet-wide ice lake with one chop. The blade Qi lingered in the crevice for 3 days. The power isn't bad. It's comparable to the profound-grade martial skills of Shang Santian. Luo Yao nodded repeatedly, but she looked indifferent. Killing God Single Slash is already so powerful, let alone Snow of the World, which is ranked higher than it. Tang Jianfeng looked at Yagyu Ida, only to see that Yagyu Ida had already closed his eyes. Someone noticed that something was amiss and exclaimed, Look, the Sword Saint's aura has changed. Even if he did not remind them, everyone would have noticed something unusual. That was because Yagyu Ida was standing on the snowy peak, but no one could sense any aura from him. They could not even feel his breathing. It was as if he was an ice sculpture. At the same time, the snow in the sky was getting thicker and thicker. The most direct chain reaction was that the temperature of Mount Fuji began to drop rapidly. In the end, not only could ordinary people not stand it, even many powerhouses present shuddered. Cold, it was too cold. It was as if the depths of their souls were cold. The snow got heavier and heavier. In the end, it covered the sky and the earth, as if a pillow had been shattered and countless cotton balls were flying in the sky. The strangest thing was that the snow was all heading towards Yagyu Ida. Soon, Yagyu Ida seemed to have turned into a snowman. Snow of the World. A solemn expression appeared on Tang Jianfeng's face as he enunciated word by word. I didn't expect him to not even use the killer god's first slash. Instead, he used the Snow of the World. From this, it can be seen that Mad Southern Yi has given him quite a bit of pressure. As his voice fell, Yagyu Ida, who had been motionless earlier, suddenly moved. He suddenly opened his eyes and took a step forward. He said slowly, Mad Southern Yi, I'll let you experience the true ultimate technique of my Yagyu family today. Snow. Float. Man. Between. As soon as the word between was said, the snow and wind that filled the sky and the ice and snow on the ground trembled a few times. Then, they all soared into the sky like cherry blossoms dancing in the air, turning into a huge river of snow and wind. At the next moment, the river of snow and wind kept flowing in all directions. In the end, it trapped Yi Chun inside. The snow and wind in the river were furious like a river with raging waves. Yagyu Ida spat out another 4 words. 10. Li. Bing. Seal. At the same time, a crisp sound came from the ground. Everyone looked over and saw that the snowflakes on the ground had all condensed at a speed visible to the naked eye. From afar, it looked like an ice river was surging towards the Sword Peak from the foot of the mountain. In the end, it formed 4 ice rivers. The ice rivers spread towards Yi Chun from all directions. Clearly, they wanted to trap Yi Chun. At that moment, the entire Mount Fuji seemed to be roaring, and even trembling. Seeing such a phenomenon, everyone was shocked, This is too terrifying. Is this still the power of a human? Some of the powerhouses sucked in a breath of cold air. They looked at Yagyu Ida in shock. Snow of the world, 10 miles of ice. As expected of the Yagyu family's ultimate technique. The ice was still spreading towards Yi-Chen. Yagyu Aida's extremely proud voice resounded. Mad Southern Yi, this is the ultimate technique of my Yagyu family, snow of the world. The place where the snow and wind are will be your burial ground. At this moment, he wanted to roar into the sky. There was originally only one style of snow of the world, but after countless generations of the Yagyu family merged it, 10 miles of ice was added. Yagyu Ida has even used snow of the world. Mad Southern Yi is at his wits' end now, right? The outcome has been decided. What a pity. We're about to witness the end of a legend. At that moment, many people on the ground shook their heads secretly. They looked at Yi-Chen with pity in their eyes. Dad, what about Mr. Yi? Chen Shui gripped the corner of Chen Lu's shirt subconsciously. Chen Lu and the other Chinese masters looked at each other. They could see a hint of worry and uneasiness in each other's eyes. Is China really going to lose? Chen Lu closed his eyes slightly in despair. At that moment, a calm voice was heard. Yagyu Ida, aren't you celebrating too early? P.S. Chapter 2. I went on a long trip today and came back late. I'm exhausted, so there are only 2 updates. I'll resume tomorrow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 6:16. On the boundless snowy mountain. As Sword Saint Yagyu Ida used the ultimate technique of the Yagyu family, snow of the world and 10 miles of ice seal. The wind and snow on Mount Fuji were all under his control. The wind and snow roared and the ground shook. While countless people were shocked, they subconsciously thought that Yi-Chen was at his wits' end. However, a calm voice came from above. Yagyu Ida, aren't you celebrating too early? Meanwhile, that sentence made everyone look at Yi-Chen. They were shocked. He can deal with the Sword Saint Snow of the world? How is that possible? Countless people's eyes were filled with disbelief. Sword Saint Yagyu's move was too powerful. It was so powerful that even many world-class giants had to retreat. Tang Jianfeng squinted and looked at Yi-Chen fixedly. His eyes were filled with anticipation. I'm curious how he's going to deal with it. It's difficult. For the first time, Luo Yao's face revealed a serious expression as she said, Yagyu Ida has long comprehended sword intent. With his sword intent and the Yagyu family's snow of the world, it can be said that as long as Yi-Chen is on Mount Fuji, he'll be within his attack range. At this point, she seemed to have thought of something and said hesitantly, actually, it's not difficult to break Yagyu Ida's snow of the world. If it's combined with my family's absolute flame palm and the true energy in my body, I can melt all the wind and snow. Yagyu Ida's snow of the world will naturally collapse on its own. However, Yi-Chen is a person from the secular world. He wouldn't have a fire-type cultivation method like Shang Santian's absolute flame palm. She shook her head slightly and looked up at Tang Jianfeng. Prepare to save him. This farce should end. Our Luo family needs to intimidate everyone when we enter the world. It's not good to attack the Chinese, but there's a good candidate right now. Tang Jianfeng nodded secretly. He was prepared to attack if Yi-Chen could not do it. Yagyu Ida smiled proudly in the face of Yi-Chen's confidence. Mad Southern Yi, you can only say that after you survive my snow of the world. Suppress him. His clothes fluttered like a mountain god of this snowy mountain. Rumble, as soon as he finished speaking, a series of earth-shattering thuds were heard. The snowstorm in the sky and the layer of ice on the ground charged at Yi-Chen at the same time. The commotion was like a snowy mountain collapsing and the heavenly river flowing backward. It completely sealed off Yi-Chen's escape route. Waves of chills assaulted him. The onlookers could not help but retreat at the same time. They looked at Yi-Chen, who was trapped in the middle of the storm, in shock. Their eyes could not stop flickering. Ever since his debut, He had won every battle he fought and never tasted defeat. Was the undefeatable Mad Southern finally going to lose? The legend would end in Japan. Would Yagyu Ida step on Mad Southern Yi and become an undefeated legend? Snow in the mortal realm? Facing the storm coming from all directions, Yi Chen had no fear on his face. Instead, he revealed a hint of disdain. How can a tiny place be called the human world? Watch how I break your insignificant tricks today. Yi Chen opened his 5 fingers slowly after saying that. 2 golden flames were faintly discernible in his eyes. I can burn the sky with a single glance. Golden fire wheel. He suddenly took a step forward, and a wisp of flame spread out from his eyes. At first, it was only a wisp, but the moment the flame appeared, it seemed to have received some nourishment. In an instant, it was like a prairie fire that swept out. The air and snow around him were all set ablaze like a world of flames. In an instant, it was a sea of fire, and the flames burned the sky. At that moment, everyone's gazes froze. They no longer saw the person beside them. There was only a sea of fire that covered the sky and covered the earth. Yagyu Aida's expression changed drastically, and all the hair on his body stood on end. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a sun hung above Yi Chen's head. There was a sun hanging above Yi Chen's head that was engulfed in flames. With him as the center, the sun was radiating heat in all directions crazily, engulfing everything. Golden fire wheel. It was a divinity derived from his golden pupil flame. It could devour the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to strengthen itself. There was nothing it could not devour, let alone Yagyu Aida's snow in the mortal realm. Therefore, as soon as the golden fire wheel appeared, the few snowy rivers and frozen soil that were charging at Yi Chen since the beginning boiled at the same time. Subsequently, they were evaporated. If one took a closer look, they would realize that all the snow and ice under Yi Chen's feet were melting crazily at a speed visible to the naked eye, revealing a large layer of black soil. At the same time, heat waves swept out in all directions, as if they wanted to evaporate the entire world. Oh no! The expressions of the people on the ground changed, and they immediately retreated more than 30 meters away. Even so, many people who could not retreat in time had their faces turn purple, as if they had been cooked by boiling water. What a powerful heat! Tang Jianfeng's expression changed slightly. He grabbed Luo Yao and retreated. The most tragic one was Yagyu Ida. That was because his eyebrows and hair were completely scorched. Dead silence. The world was dead silent. At that moment, no one made a sound. At that moment, everyone's eyes widened as they stared blankly at the towering figure in the sky with his hands behind his back. He was like a god of fire that had descended to the world. They were shocked. From the beginning, it was Yagyu Ida who attacked while Yi Chen took the attacks passively. Therefore, everyone looked down on him subconsciously. However, Yi Chen brought such a terrifying power and seen the moment he attacked. He broke Yagyu Aida's strongest attack the moment he attacked. Was this the true strength of the China No. 1 Mad Southern Yi? Everyone's hearts were trembling. How is this possible? How is this possible? Yagyu Aida's hair was charred black. He looked at Yi Chen with trembling eyes. Firstly, he was shocked that Yi Chen broke his snow in the mortal realm. Secondly, he was shocked that Yi Chen could unleash such a heaven-defying divinity. Yi Chen stood proudly in the sea of fire. As his pupils flickered, the flames on his body slowly dissipated. In the end, the flames that filled the sky dissipated as if they had returned to his body. In your eyes, the snow in the mortal realm is the ultimate technique of the world, but in my eyes, it's nothing. From the beginning until the end, he stood there steadily, as if the divinity from before was just something he had casually done. Yagyu Ida fell silent, and his expression could not calm down for a long time. At that moment, he finally realized that the young man opposite him was not as powerful as the rumors said. In fact, he was even more powerful. He admitted that he had underestimated him from the beginning. "You've already used your strongest move, haven't you? It's my turn now." As soon as Yi Chen said that, the almighty killer sword appeared in his hand. An extremely cold voice was heard. "Since you're called the Japanese Sword Saint, I'll use your strongest sword to kill you today." Chapter 6:17. He lifted his foot and took a step forward. In the next moment, he disappeared on the spot. At that moment, everyone felt the hair on their bodies stand on end. Sword chi. Sword chi filled the sky. Terrifying sword chi enveloped the entire Mount Fuji. Even the snowstorm that was falling from the sky began to boil under the sword chi that filled the sky. The snowstorm roared as if it could not bear the weight. Heaven and earth resonated. In the next moment, Yi Chen appeared before Yagyu Ida while holding his sword lightly. Thousands of sword chi radiated from his body, as if tens of thousands of swords had turned into a giant umbrella behind him. "Have a taste of my sword." A sword gleam tore through the sky like lightning, illuminating the day abnormally dazzling. Following an intense piercing sound, a shocking sword chi slashed at Yagyu Aida's head. Everyone on the ground froze. They knew that the situation of the battle had changed drastically after Yi Chen broke through Yagyu Aida's Snow of the World. For example, if Yi Chen was defending passively while Yagyu Ida was attacking continuously, it was now Yi Chen attacking while Yagyu Ida was forced to defend. Yagyu Ida sensed it almost at that moment. His expression changed at first, but he was the Japanese sword saint after all. He calmly unleashed all the sword intent on his body. Invisible sword intent enveloped his surroundings, and then a terrifying sword chi storm appeared with him as the center. All the air in the center of the storm was torn apart, and there was a faint sound of breaking. When Yi Chen's sword chi slashed over, it paused for a moment. Subsequently, it was torn apart by the sword chi storm. Yagyu Ida took a quick step forward and released the sword chi storm. He wanted to regain the initiative and suppress Yi Chen. As he took a step forward, the sword chi storm around him became even more terrifying. Meanwhile, sword chi kept charging at Yi Chen behind him as if they wanted to drown Yi Chen. Meanwhile, Yi Chen moved. The almighty killer sword in his hand left his hand and charged at Yagyu Aida's sword chi storm. It was surprisingly fast, like a bolt of lightning that tore through the sky. Bang! With a loud noise, the almighty killer sword shattered Yagyu Aida's sword chi storm on the spot. The sword's momentum did not decrease as it slashed towards Yagyu Aida's arm. Yagyu Aida's expression changed slightly. His figure flashed and he barely dodged the almighty killer sword. Even so, his sleeve was cut open by the almighty killer sword. Blood dripped from it and his bones could be seen. Hua! Seeing this scene, there was an uproar on the ground. The sword saint was injured. Since the start of the battle, the sword saint was the first to be injured. Killing God's first slash. Yagyu Ida could not be bothered with his wound. Instead, he took a deep breath and condensed a sword beam that was over 100 feet long at lightning speed. At that moment, the sword gleam crossed dozens of meters like a waterfall and slashed at Yi Chen at lightning speed. One sword strike. A terrifying force pressed down on the surrounding space. The air was completely torn apart, and behind the sword light, a scarlet illusory figure with a mask on his face suddenly appeared. He slashed at Yi Chen with the sword gleam in his hand as if he wanted to shatter the world and kill Yi Chen with one strike. At the same time, an extremely violent and bloody aura emanated from the black illusory figure and spread in all directions. It was the killing god's first slash. It was as if a peerless killing god had slashed out with his sword, wanting to reap countless lives. Perfect timing. Yi Chen laughed out loud and swung his sword again. Boom! With a deafening boom, countless streams of sword chi dispersed violently in all directions. Yagyu Ida spat a mouthful of blood and took over 10 steps back. The shock on his face could not be hidden. Meanwhile, Yi Chen took 5 steps back consecutively. His hand that was holding the almighty killer sword was trembling slightly. He had to admit it. Yagyu Aida's killing god's first slash was very powerful, especially the sword intent contained within it. If not for the strength of his physical body, he would not have dared to take it head-on. Again, Yi Chen let out a long roar and the air shook. The almighty killer sword in his hand seemed to have sensed his state of mind. Its entire body shone with a dazzling light. Sword chi whistled endlessly on it, sweeping across a radius of 3,000 meters. Wild sword from the west. As soon as he finished speaking, the monstrous sword chi finally condensed into a sword in front of him. The sword gleam expanded by hundreds of meters and slashed at Yagyu Aida with a terrifying sword intent. Yagyu Aida was immediately on guard. He immediately condensed 8 sword gleams in front of him. As the sword gleams split, they protected him tightly. Bang! The sword slashed over, and the 8 sword gleams in front of him instantly shattered. He was sent flying heavily, and he spat a line of blood from his mouth. The sword gleam did not slow down. Countless cherry trees were cut in half, and the cherry blossoms danced in the wind. Cold sword light overturns the world. Another sword gleam slashed over. Yagyu Aida forcefully suppressed the surging vital energy and blood in his body and roared as he slashed out, killing God's first slash. Bang! He was sent flying more than 10 meters back again. Thunder shatters 5 mountains. Yi Chen became more and more courageous as he fought. He did not give him a chance to catch his breath. Frost and snow fill all directions. Raging flames shake 9 provinces. As Yi Chen slashed again and again, Yagyu Aida did not dare to take it head-on this time. Instead, he retreated as he fought. The two of them fought from the peak of the snow mountain to the foot of the snow mountain. Wherever he passed, sword chi whistled and the air shook. Countless cherry trees were cut down by Yi Chen's sword chi. At that moment Yi Chen, he was like an immortal descending, like a god descending. He approached step by step. Wherever he passed, the snow mountain collapsed. He slashed with his sword, and Yagyu Aida spat blood repeatedly. He was riddled with wounds, and he could not retaliate at all. He could only flee like a rat. Too powerful. He was simply too powerful. Everyone followed him from the peak of the snow mountain to the foot of the snow mountain, watching everything in a daze. Their expressions had already stiffened, and only their surging emotions showed their current emotions. Everyone was shocked from the bottom of their hearts. Looking at the pathetic sword Saint Yagyu Aida, the Japanese cultivators' hearts trembled. Their faces were ashen, as if their faith had collapsed. This was the most powerful person in Japan, the person whom all of them had placed their hopes on. They knew. The battle that represented the pinnacle between Japan and China had come to an end. At the same time, they were filled with despair. Even someone as powerful as the Sword Saint was no match for Mad Southern Yi. Who else in Japan could punish Mad Southern Yi? Many powerhouses from the Western countries looked at each other and saw deep fear in each other's eyes. However, there was more killing intent. Killing intent toward Yi Chen. Once Yagyu Aida was defeated, it meant that no one in the East would be Mad Southern Yi's match. After Mad Southern Yi dominated the East, if he were to touch the West, why not wait until both of them were injured? Thinking to this point, the experts from the United States, North Korea, and Great Britain nodded at each other and reached an agreement in that instant. Just as they were about to attack, Yagyu Aida roared. Yagyu Aida roared, "Shutendaji, how long are the 3 of you going to watch the show?" Chapter 6:18. Shutendaji, when are the 3 of you going to stop watching the show? Yagyu Aida almost spat blood as he roared. At that moment, he was extremely furious. At the end of the day, the battle between him and Yi Chen was triggered by the 3 Yin-Yang master clans. In the beginning, they agreed that he would test Yi Chen's ability, and the giants behind the 3 Yin-Yang master clans would attack. In the end, not only was he defeated by Yi Chen, but the three giants were still watching from the sidelines. It was as if they wanted to watch Yi Chen kill him. As his voice fell, a strange gleam flashed across the eyes of some of the people present. They seemed to have thought of something. Could it be? At that moment, countless people widened their eyes and looked around, trying to see who Yagyu Ida was talking to. Yagyu Ida was already so powerful. If he really had helpers, it would be difficult for Mad Southern Yi to walk out of Japan alive even if he won. Yagyu Ida was already so powerful. If he really had a helper, it would be difficult for Mad Southern Yi to leave Japan alive even if he won. Yagyu Ida was already so powerful. If he really had helpers, it would be difficult for Mad Southern Yi to walk out of Japan alive even if he won. At that moment, everyone saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. Darkness, boundless darkness attacked from afar, like a ferocious beast with its bloody mouth wide open, crazily devouring the light. Suddenly, the wind and clouds changed, and day and night were reversed. Everyone felt their vision turn black, and the entire world darkened. It was clearly a sunny day earlier, but it turned into night in the blink of an eye. Darkness enveloped the entire Mount Fuji. Only the sky above the Sword Peak still had half a crescent moon shining on the ground. Yes, the sky above everyone's heads was filled with blood-colored clouds. Every cloud was filled with a heavy, rust-like aura of blood. Strange, everything was strange. What's happening? Why did the sky suddenly turn dark? Is this a solar eclipse? Could it be the end of the world? Let's go, let's go. It's so scary. Countless people were shocked by the sudden phenomenon. For a moment, the scene was filled with cries, screams, crowds, and even cries. Only a portion of people maintained their rationality and turned on the flashlights on their phones. Only then did the night not become so dark, and the endless darkness did not make everyone trample on each other. Ha ha ha! A series of strange and ear-piercing laughter rang in everyone's ears. In the next moment, countless glowing figures appeared in the surroundings. There were men and women among them. Their figures were illusory, and all of them floated in the air. Their expressions were ferocious and resentful, and they emitted a sinister aura. As far as the eye could see, they were densely packed together, causing one's scalp to go numb. Ghost, ghost. Get lost, don't come near me. Save me, save me. The crowd, which had finally quietened down, once again burst into an uproar. Countless people looked at the ghosts around them in horror, and their bodies trembled in fear. Fortunately, these ghosts did not rush forward. Instead, they kept a certain distance from everyone and stopped moving. It was as if they were protecting them. At that moment, Chiba Yoshiko, who was in the crowd, walked to Yi Chen quickly. She said in a trembling voice while looking extremely terrified, Master, they're here. The three Onmyoji clans have made their move. These ghosts were released by them. If I'm not mistaken, the phenomenon in the sky was created by the Kumo family's Shikigami, Tengu. A gleam flashed through Yi Chen's eyes when he heard that. His divine consciousness covered a radius of over 10 kilometers, and he could clearly sense that the phenomenon before him only covered Mount Fuji. Meanwhile, it was still sunny outside of Mount Fuji. Clearly, the ghosts behind the Onmyoji clans had used their divinity to change the weather. Otherwise, these demons would not have been able to appear under such a clear sky. As soon as Chiba Yoshiko finished speaking, a sinister laughter rang out in everyone's ears, as expected of someone from the Chiba clan. You actually know us so well. The voice was very ethereal, and it was hard to tell if it was male or female. However, as soon as it appeared, everyone could not help but have goosebumps. The next moment, a short boy suddenly appeared in the air. The boy's head was extremely large, but his face was extremely handsome. He stood in the air with his hands behind his back, revealing his extremely long and slender fingers that were like jade bamboo shoot. His charming eyes that looked at Chiba Yoshiko flickered with a sinister and terrifying cold gleam. You're still a virgin? Your flesh and blood can go with wine. Master, it's Shutendaji. Chiba Yoshiko hid behind Yi-Chen in fear. Her body could not stop trembling, and the decibel of her voice suddenly increased by dozens of times as if she had encountered some terrifying existence. Shutendaji, one of the 3 great Japanese demons. He was active during the peaceful period in Japan. Because he was addicted to alcohol and had a handsome young man's face, he was called Shutendaji. Rumor had it that Shutendaji liked to seduce young girls, and they were all virgins. After seducing them, he would cut off their heads and drink with them. Therefore, he was also known as the Virgin Killer. On the other hand, the Japanese also revealed expressions of shock. After all, Shutendaji was a legend in Japan. They did not expect to see him with their own eyes. One must know that he had existed since the peaceful period in Japan. It was equivalent to having existed for more than 1,000 years. Shutendaji only glanced at Chiba Yoshiko before looking at Yi-Chen, the China no. 1. Mad Southern Yi, you've really surprised us. After all, in the eyes of demons and gods that had lived for thousands of years, Chiba Yoshiko and the rest were at most food. They were not worthy of their attention. Only Yi-Chen was worthy of their attention. Subsequently, a blood-colored cloud floated over. It carried an extremely dense stench of blood and dissipated with the cloud. A long blade was revealed. The long blade was evil and demonic, and it was covered in blood. There was a blood-colored eye on the hilt. The eye suddenly opened and stared at Yi-Chen. It was filled with bloodthirst. An old voice was heard. Arrogant, what an exciting day. I can't believe there are so many people here. It's the demon blade Muramasa. It actually gave birth to a demon spirit. Someone in the crowd cried out in shock. His voice was filled with shock, causing everyone's expressions to change. Yi-Chen squinted as surprise flashed across his face. He had heard of the demon blade Muramasa before. It was said that during the Edo period in Japan, there was a family of swordsmiths. They had been forging swords for 3 generations, and they would even engrave the word Muramasa on the blade. In the beginning, this sword was not called the demon blade. It all originated from the family matter of Tokugawa Ieyasu. Chapter 6:19. Secondly, Tokugawa Ieyasu's father was assassinated by his retainer with the Muramasa blade. Then, Tokugawa Ieyasu cut his finger when he was young, and his wife was killed when he grew up. He was ambushed by someone who threw the Muramasa blade when he went out to fight. It was said that it was the same Muramasa blade. The Muramasa blade was like a curse to the Tokugawa family, causing 4 generations of the family to die because of it. Therefore, after the Tokugawa family unified Japan, they treated the Muramasa blade as a demon blade and ordered the world to destroy it. That was the origin of the demon blade Muramasa. After that, in order to commemorate Tokugawa Ieyasu and the hard-won world, the Tokugawa family kept the Muramasa blade that caused 4 generations of Tokugawa Ieyasu to bleed in the museum. Unexpectedly, the Muramasa blade disappeared overnight. The museum's glass cabinet showed no signs of damage, and the surveillance cameras showed no signs of burglary. The strange disappearance of the blade became an unsolved mystery. Who would have thought that it would suddenly appear now? That was why some of the Japanese present were so excited. In reality, even without the demon blade Muramasa's reputation, just the blade that stood in the air and had eyes was enough to send chills down their spines. The demon blade Muramasa traversed the air and stared at Yi-Chen with its blood-red eyes. Mad Southern Yi, I heard that your body is invincible. I wonder if I can kill you. At that moment, a laugh came from the air. Muramasa, you should know that even the Sword Saint's sword can't kill him. Why would he be afraid of you? Unless I'm included. At the next moment, a huge monster stepped out of the air. It had a bright red face and a long, sharp nose. It looked like a gibbon. It wore a monk's robe and high-toothed wooden clogs. It held a feather fan and a mallet. It was very tall, more than 5 meters tall. The Kusakabe family's demon god, Heavenly Crow Dog. Chiba Yoshiko was in despair. There were a total of 4 gods behind the 4 yin-yang master clans in Japan. Each of them possessed great divinity, apart from the monkey that Yi Chen had subdued. Shutendaji, Demon Blade Muramasa, and Heavenly Crow Dog were left. Now, the 3 of them were here together. At this moment, the entire place was dead silent. Everyone stared blankly at the 3 strange figures in the sky, their hearts filled with shock. One had to know that any one of them could kill Sword Saint Yagyu Ida. He did not expect the 3 gods to gather just to deal with mad Southern Yi. Things are getting out of hand. Luo Yao, who was in the crowd, had a grim expression on her face. She could feel the mighty power coming from the 3 gods. Even she was shocked by this power. Tang Jianfeng shook his head slightly. It seems like we've underestimated the Japanese's foundation. He had originally thought that the Sword Saint Yagyu Ida was the most powerful existence in Japan. He did not expect that there would be such shocking 3 demons and demons behind him. Luo Yao took a deep breath in and turned to look at him. There was a hint of seriousness on her face. Can you and mad Southern Yi defeat them together? If I, Yi, Ei and E said, yup. Yi, more and E. Chen Shui, who was in the crowd, said in a trembling voice, Dad, what should we do now? She had never seen such a side to this world. Chen Lu closed his eyes and said with a bitter smile, The real powerhouses of China are not here yet. We can only rely on Mr. Yi now. He knew his own strength very well. Although he was a martial Dao master and could deal with ordinary masters, he was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot against the 3 gods. Yagyu Aida's sword alone was too much for them to handle, let alone the 3 gods. Lu Chongkong from Wudong sect shook his head slightly. It's a pity that my master hasn't come out of closed-door cultivation. Otherwise, he might be able to do something. That's right. Only the Wudong Grandmaster, Senior Li, can fight against such an existence. The other Chinese powerhouses nodded one after another, and their hearts sank. After hearing these words, Chiba Yoshiko's face gradually turned pale. She did not dare to imagine the consequences of Yi Chen's death at the same time. Seeing the 3 gods appear at the same time, the Sword Saint, Yagyu Ida, who was already in despair, leaped into the air and snorted, You guys came just in time. He had almost died under Yi Chen's sword. Heavenly Hound needs to use his divinity to change the weather here. Otherwise, we won't be able to descend, Shutendaji smiled wickedly. Crow Heavenly Hound waved the feather fan in his hand and lifted his head to look at Yi Chen. There was a playful smile on his face. The China #1, Mad Southern Yi, you never dreamed that your real opponent would be us, did you? Yi Chen's expression remained the same as he faced the 3 arrogant gazes. He did not change at all. With his hands behind his back, a hint of a smile appeared in his arrogant eyes. I was just about to look for you guys. Now that you guys have come to me, it couldn't be better. I'll deal with you all at once. Mad Southern Yi, you're too arrogant. Shutendaji took a step forward and sneered. Do you really think that you have the power to fight us just because you defeated Yagyu Ida? That's right. Don't forget that you're alone, and there are 3 of us. In addition to Yagyu Ida, you'll definitely die today. One of Demon Blade Muramasa's eyes could not stop twitching in excitement. Crow Heavenly Hound chuckled. Mad Southern Yi, you and we were originally minding our own business. If you continued to be the #1 person in China, we would still be able to live in harmony. However, you shouldn't have killed your way into Japan. Not only did you destroy the Hitamoto clan, you even killed the Soul Eater. Although the Soul Eater has been scheming to devour us, we're all gods. Now that it's dead, how can we not feel sad? At this point, the smile on his face suddenly turned cold. So, today is the day you die. However, don't worry, we'll keep your body. We'll let the so-called China #1 become our puppet. I think China will be very happy when that happens. I thought the Japanese's so-called gods were powerful. Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back and chuckled softly. He seemed to be disdainful. It seems like you're just 3 little demons and ghosts. How dare you 3 pieces of trash talk to me? As he spoke, he took a step forward and shouted coldly, "Today, I'll kill all of you. I'll break through Mount Fuji and destroy your so-called T myth. 3 pieces of trash. Get over here and accept your death. P.S. This is the 2nd chapter. The previous chapter was blocked as soon as it was published. I had no choice but to merge the contents of the 1st and 2nd chapters into one chapter. There's another chapter later. I'm writing it. End of this chapter." Chapter 620. They heard Yi Chen calling the 3 of them trash. B*****. Shutendaji and the other 2's faces turned ashen when they heard that. Their eyes were filled with intense killing intent and rage. The 3 of them were regarded as gods in Japan. They had always been high and mighty, so when had they ever been belittled like this? Attack, kill him together. Tengu took a step forward, and his aura soared into the sky. Kill him! 3 loud shouts were heard. Sword Saint Yagyu, Shutendaji, and Demon Blade Muramasa attacked together. At that moment, 4 extremely terrifying pressures enveloped Yi Chen. In the face of such pressure, everyone on the ground groaned in unison. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and retreated dozens of meters away. They looked at the 5 figures in the sky again with shock in their eyes. Just the pressure that they emitted was enough to severely injure them. "Do you really think there's no one in China who can bully you with numbers?" Luo Yao harumphed coldly. She no longer had her playful image from before as she looked at Tang Jianfeng. "Are you going to attack, or should I?" Just as Tang Jianfeng was about to speak, he suddenly looked at the foot of the snowy mountain behind him. Shutendaji and the rest, who were in the sky, also stopped and looked over. There were 2 terrifying auras rushing towards them at high speed. At the next moment, 2 incomparably majestic figures walked through the air. One of them was spewing crimson flames, just like the fire god Prometheus in ancient Greek mythology. The moment he appeared, the temperature of the world suddenly rose. The other person was more than 6 meters tall. He had a piece of beast skin tied around his waist to cover his private parts, and the rest of his body was exposed to the air. From afar, he looked like a giant. Just the pressure from their bodies made everyone want to kneel on the ground. "It's Fire Emperor and Titan. They're here too. How is this possible? I didn't expect this battle to alarm them as well." There was an uproar on the ground. Someone revealed the identities of the 2 people in shock, causing the expressions of countless people to change. It would not be an exaggeration to say that these 2 names were like thunder piercing their ears. A world-class giant. They were ranked in the top 10 on the world ranking. Members of the International Tribunal. Most importantly, they were members of the International Tribunal. The International Tribunal. For all ordinary people and even cultivators, these 5 words were a terrifying existence that they had never heard of. In order to restrain the world's world-class giants, the powerhouses of the various countries unanimously established the International Tribunal and set down clear rules. Once an expert overstepped the rules and regulations, he would be punished by the experts of the other countries. What followed would be a devastating blow. For so many years, the seats of the International Tribunal were almost monopolized by the Western countries, while none of the Eastern countries had a seat. Never. Even China and Japan were no exceptions. Experts, both of them are experts. Tang Jianfeng's expression changed slightly as he sucked in a breath of cold air. Luo Yao's expression gradually turned grim. "I didn't expect there to be such a powerhouse in the world apart from Shang Santian. Looks like Shang Santian still doesn't know enough about the outside world." They initially thought that it was already heaven-defying to have 1 or 2 mad Southern Yi in the secular world. Never did they expect that there would be 2 powerhouses who were on par with Yi Chen now. As the 2 of them appeared, the expressions of Shutendaji and the rest changed slightly. Deep fear flashed through their eyes. Yagyu Ida took a few steps forward and asked in a deep voice, "May I know why the two of you suddenly visited Japan?" Fire Emperor and Titan crossed the sky and looked down on everything. How could the International Tribunal not notice such a huge incident in Japan? Fire Emperor dispersed the flames on his body, revealing an extremely skinny old man. The old man's gaze was extremely sharp as he looked down at the ground. Finally, he said slowly, "What exactly happened? All of you, tell me quickly." Yagyu Ida slowly told him about Yi Chun killing his way into Japan, severely injuring the Chiba family, then killing his way into the Hitamoto clan and destroying the Yamaguchi-gumi. Fire Emperor's eyes flickered nonstop. In the end, he fixed his gaze on Yi Chun. His aura was oppressive. "You're the China #1, Mad Southern Yi? Is what Yagyu Ida said true? So what if I am? So what if I'm not?" Yi Chun's expression remained unchanged as he looked at him. Fire Emperor frowned slightly, seemingly displeased. On the other hand, Titan, who was next to him, shrunk his body and turned into a normal person. He looked at Yi Chun and said with a cold smile, "You're indeed as arrogant as the rumors say. You don't know fear. Are the two of you here today to stop me from killing these 4 pieces of trash?" Yi Chun's attitude was cold as he said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Shutendaji was furious when he heard that. "Stop you?" Titan sneered. "Mad Southern Yi, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you're the ruler of China. You're not worthy of the International Tribunal's intervention. The two of us are here today in accordance with the rules of the International Tribunal to understand the grudge between you and Yi Chun." He glanced at Yi Chun in the end and said, "I asked you earlier if what Yagyu Ida said was true. Your answer was ambiguous, so it's considered that you started the trouble." At this point, his expression suddenly became dignified. "In order to prevent the matter from escalating, the two of us represent the International Tribunal and allow both of you to fight. However, no powerhouses from both sides are allowed to interfere. Otherwise, both of us will kill you." Everyone was in an uproar when they heard that. Fire Emperor's meaning was obvious. He approved of this unfair battle. It was equivalent to saying that the situation had been biased from the beginning, and it was on the Japanese's side. Saying that it was fair was just a bluff. Yagyu Ida and Shutendaji were stunned at first, but they soon revealed joy on their faces. They said in unison, "We accept. Mad Southern Yi, are you willing to accept?" Titan looked at Yi Chun with an undeniable gaze. Just when Yi Chun was about to speak, a cold snort suddenly came from the crowd. "China isn't willing." Fire Emperor and Titan's expressions turned grim. They looked in the direction of the voice and saw the crowd on the left retreating, revealing 2 figures. It was Luo Yao and Tang Jianfeng. Facing everyone's gaze, Luo Yao was not afraid at all. Instead, she sneered and said, "There's only one Mad Southern Yi in China, and there are 4 Japanese. Anyone who understands knows that this is an unfair battle." "Who are you?" Fire Emperor secretly released a trace of pressure at Luo Yao. However, he was surprised to find that Luo Yao was not affected by the pressure at all. Luo Yao revealed a harmless smile. "My mother said that girls have to learn to protect themselves when they're outside. They can't reveal their identity and name to strangers, especially bad people like you." "What are you going to do then?" A gleam flashed across Fire Emperor's eyes. "Although I don't know what the International Tribunal is, I'm sure it's an organization that maintains world peace." Luo Yao smacked her lips and pointed at Tang Jianfeng beside her. "Since it's to maintain world peace, I'm sure it respects fairness and justice. This guy beside me is quite strong. Why don't we let him join the battle and fight Mad Southern Yi 2 against 4? Strong?" Tang Jianfeng looked helpless when he heard that. However, he still took a step forward and scratched his head. He mimicked Luo Yao and revealed a harmless expression. "I'm Tang Jianfeng from China. I'm willing to help Mad Southern Yi so that people won't say that there's no one capable in China. Fire Emperor and Titan looked at each other. Seeing that Tang Jianfeng was alone, they were no match for Yagyu Ida and the other three even if they worked together with Yi Chen. Just as they were about to agree, they heard an extremely anxious voice in their ears. Don't agree to him. Don't agree to him. When they looked again, they saw Yagyu Ida looking at Tang Jianfeng with fear on his face. He was jumping and jumping excitedly. This person is a ruthless person who pretends to be weak. I was defeated by him with a branch earlier. Chapter 6:21. This person is a stubborn person who pretends to be a pig to eat a tiger. I was defeated by him with a tree branch earlier. Yagyu Ida's voice was neither loud nor soft, but it reached everyone's ears without missing a single word. For a moment, the entire place fell into dead silence. Countless gazes looked at Tang Jianfeng. Some were doubtful, some were shocked, and most of them were in disbelief. Such a young man had defeated Sword Saint Yagyu Ida? And he had used a tree branch? Even Shutendaji and the other two were no exception. If those words had not come from Yagyu Ida's mouth, they would not have believed it even if they were beaten to death. One had to know that Yagyu Ida's strength was on par with any of the three of them. Yi Chen lifted his eyes and took a good look at Tang Jianfeng. He did not expect this person to challenge Yagyu Ida alone before he fought him. Fire Emperor and Titan looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Impudent! Fire Emperor suddenly shouted coldly and looked down at Luo Yao and Tang Jianfeng. This is a personal grudge between Mad Southern Yi, Yagyu Ida, and the Japanese. How can you interfere? Luo Yao's pretty face turned cold. Just when she was about to flare up, Yi Chen suddenly said, I appreciate your kindness, but I don't need your help with these 4 pieces of trash. At this point, he suddenly looked at Fire Emperor and raised his eyes. His gaze was incomparably cold. The two of you can come at me together. I don't mind killing 2 more world-class giants to liven things up. Mad Southern Yi, do you really think you're invincible? Don't think that just because you're the ruler of China, you can look down on us. Tai Tan shouted, his gaze incomparably cold. Noisy. An extremely cold snort was heard. A figure took a step forward and appeared in front of Titan in the blink of an eye. A terrifying force swept in all directions in the air. Boom. Following a loud sound that sounded like a thunderclap, the space around Titan immediately surged with extremely violent energy fluctuations. A muffled groan was heard. When he looked again, he saw Titan take a few steps back. A trace of scarlet blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The entire place was dead silent, deathly silent. At that moment, everyone looked at Yi Chen, who was standing where the Titan was in shock. The shock on their faces could not be erased. One strike. Mad Southern Yi injured the world-class giant Titan, who was known to have an invincible body, with a single strike. The Titan did not even have time to react during the entire process. Even Tang Jianfeng and Luo Yao did not expect Yi Chen to attack suddenly. I, Yi Chen, have never needed outsiders to tell me what to do. If the two of you are unhappy with me, you can come at me together. Why do you have to play these sneaky tricks? Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back. There was no expression on his face. Even if there are 200 or 2,000 of you, I'm not afraid, let alone the 2 of you. So fast. Fire Emperor's eyelids twitched. His evaluation of Yi Chen's ability and fear rose to another level. Yagyu Ida, kill him! A fierce roar came from Titan's mouth. He was obviously enraged. This was because he hadn't been injured in nearly 100 years, and it was by an Eastern monkey in front of so many people. Attack! Yagyu Ida shouted. A shocking sword chi erupted from his hand all of a sudden. It pierced through the night and slashed at Yi Chen first. Kill him! We can't let him leave Japan alive today. At that moment, the 3 Japanese demons, Shutendaji, Demon Blade Muramasa, and Heavenly Crow Dog, attacked at the same time. Boom! 4 powerful auras burst forth from the 4 of them at the same time, crushing the air around them into a vacuum. The air trembled as if it could not bear the weight. At that moment, everyone retreated 500 meters away and stared at the battle in the sky. There was only shock in their eyes. The Sword Saint and the 3 gods could unleash such power when they joined forces. Even Fire Emperor and Titan had a solemn look in their eyes. They were well aware of how terrifying the combined strength of the Sword Saint and the other 3 was. If any of them were in their place, they would also have to retreat. Not to mention Mad Southern Yi. A cold smirk appeared at the corner of Fire Emperor's lips. Mad Southern Yi must die today. It can be considered as getting rid of a great threat for the West in the East. The International Tribunal represented the top power in the world. It was enough to destroy any country, and the seats had been occupied by the powerhouses of the Western countries for all these years. If Yi Chun killed Sword Saint Yagyu, no one in the East would be able to threaten him anymore. That was not what the Western countries wanted to see. Get ready to attack. Luo Yao's pretty face was solemn. Help Mad Southern Yi kill Shutendaji and the other 3 later. As for Fire Emperor and Titan, leave them to me. Are you going to use the magic tool that Uncle gave you? Tang Jianfeng's expression changed slightly. He seemed to have thought of something inside. That's the protective magic tool that Uncle gave you. You only have 3 chances, and you can't use it unless it's a matter of life and death. Are you going to do this for Mad Southern Yi? I'm not just doing this for Mad Southern Yi. Luo Yao's beautiful eyes were cold. Father said that whether it's Shang Santian or the secular world, we're all Chinese. I'm just doing my part for China. Kill. Under the violent energy fluctuations, the eyes of Sword Saint Yagyu and the other 3 were as ruthless as ferocious beasts. As the 4 of them roared, they charged out at the same time. They charged at Yi Chen in a semi-encirclement. Divine consciousness materialization. Yi Chen did not panic at all when he saw that. He unleashed all his divine consciousness from his mudball palace. Buzz. The air trembled slightly, and an invisible energy wave condensed around him like a huge net. Condense. A soft shout was heard. Yi Chen controlled the divine consciousness around him to compress it crazily. Buzz, buzz, when the divine sense around him was compressed to the extreme, it boiled like a ball of molten iron. In an instant, it formed a golden long saber in a wonderful state. This saber was formed by the fusion of divine sense. At first glance, it gave off an extremely mysterious feeling, as if it could split the world in half with a single slash. Divine consciousness materialization. This was a common method used by cultivators. They transformed the divine sense, or spiritual power, into a weapon, which was specifically targeted at the soul. However, the requirement for the caster's divine sense power was extremely high. Even though Yi Chen was on foundation building now, it was a little difficult for him to perform it quickly. Fortunately, he succeeded. With the appearance of the golden long saber, the expressions of the 3 gods who were charging at Yi Chen changed at the same time. They felt a bone-piercing chill coming from the depths of their souls. They were demons, ghosts, and immortals. They were souls, and without the shackles of a physical body, they seemed to be more at ease. Secular weapons could only cut them in half, but they could reform again. However, he had to change it to a saber that targeted souls. But it was their nemesis. Chapter 6:22. Oh no, retreat. Shutendaji and the other 2 stopped in their track. At that moment, the 3 of them were shocked. They were shocked by how Yi Chen possessed such terrifying mental power. Only Yagyu Ida, the living person, was unaffected. He slashed at Yi Chen fearlessly with the sword qi that filled the sky. Humph! Yi Chen scoffed and threw a punch with the power of his physical body. He shattered the sword gleam that was slashing at him on the spot. The force of the punch did not decrease at all. Trash, get lost. Boom! Yagyu Ida spat blood repeatedly as he was sent flying. A long line of blood appeared in the air, and countless cracks appeared on his body. The spectators were shocked on the spot. With a single punch, he severely injured Yagyu Ida. He could be said to be invincible. Yi Chen took a step forward, and the air shook. As if he was possessed by the god of sabers, he slashed at Shitendaji and the other two with the golden saber in his hand. "I'll hold him back. You guys take the opportunity to kill him." Shitendaji's expression changed. Then, he gritted his teeth and a black wine pot appeared in his hand. He tossed the wine pot, and it soared into the sky and hovered above his head. It was the soul brew that he had kept for hundreds of years. In the next moment, countless black energy surged out from the wine pot. The black energy immediately condensed into countless evil spirits that bared their fangs and brandished their claws in the air. The evil spirits charged at Yi Chen. At that moment, black energy soared into the sky, and ghosts wailed and wolves howled. It was like purgatory on earth, causing everyone on the ground to feel their scalps go numb. What no one noticed was that the moment the malicious spirits appeared, the monkey, who was initially sleeping on Yi Chen's shoulder, jolted and woke up. The monkey's green eyes sized up the evil spirits as if it had seen something fatally tempting. "Kill!" Demon Blade Muramasa and Crow Tengu stepped out at the same time. Their killing intent was shocking. Even Sword Saint Yagyu Ida, who was sent flying by Yi Chen's punch earlier, joined the battle again. Countless spirits and malicious spirits rushed toward Yi Chen. Slash! Yi Chen held the golden saber in his hand and slashed. A golden saber gleam pierced through the night like an elongated setting sun and slashed at the evil spirits that were charging at him. The evil spirits at the forefront were instantly killed with a single slash. However, there were still countless evil spirits that charged forward fearlessly. At that moment, Shitendaji and the other two had joined forces to attack Yi Chen. Moreover, they chose to attack Yi Chen from behind. 3 murderous intents covered the sky and earth. "Mad Southern Yi, let's see how you deal with this." Shitendaji released the soul brew in his gourd in a frenzy. The smile on his face was extremely sinister. At this very moment, all he saw was a blur. A green figure flashed past his eyes. The next moment, a monkey the size of a palm leaped into the air and hugged the wine pot. It was hard to imagine that it could actually carry a wine pot that was twice its size. The smile on Shitendaji's face froze. "What is this thing? Monkey?" What happened next left it dumbfounded. Monkey carried the wine pot and ran. With a few steps, he arrived at an empty space and placed the mouth of the wine pot to his mouth. One by one, he swallowed all the Een souls gushing out of the wine pot. "Why you?" After being stunned for a moment, Shitendaji charged at the monkey crazily as if he had been provoked by something. B*****, return my wine pot. He had always been addicted to alcohol, and he only drank the wine brewed from souls. However, he had always been reluctant to drink it. Now that he had no choice but to release all the souls in the wine pot to deal with Yi Chen, he did not expect it to be snatched away by a monkey in the blink of an eye. He was really snatching it. He was brazenly snatching it right in front of Shitendaji. Not only did he not run after snatching it, he even ate it right in front of him. At that moment, without the Een souls in the wine pot holding him back, the golden saber left Yi Chen's hand after he killed the remaining Een souls with one slash. It flew behind him in the blink of an eye. Then, he slashed at it. Oh no! At that moment, Demon Blade Muramasa and Crow Tengu's expressions changed drastically. Before they could react, Yi Chen's golden saber slashed at Crow Tengu and pierced through its body. No! Crow Tengu let out an uneasy roar. This roar reached everyone's ears, including Shitendaji, who went to snatch his wine pot. It even spread throughout Mount Fuji and even Japan. When Shitendaji heard this, he subconsciously turned around and saw a scene that broke his heart. A saber gleam pierced through Crow Tengu's body. At the next moment, Crow Tengu was instantly split into two. As one of the 3 remaining gods in Japan, Crow Tengu was killed with a single slash. Even his remnant soul did not escape. The speed was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. Dead silence. Dead silence. Everyone stared blankly at the scene. Shock. Absolute shock. 1 slash. Mad Southern Yi killed Crow Tengu with a single slash. Tengu. At that moment, Demon Blade Muramasa and Shutendaji roared in unwillingness, shock, disbelief, and even fear. Powerful, very powerful. Tang Jianfeng heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Yi Chen in the sky in shock and mumbled. He killed a god with a single slash. We've underestimated his ability again. How can his mental power be so powerful? A gleam flashed through Luo Yao's beautiful eyes. It's the mental power of an origin energy spell master. It seems like Yi Chen has his own secrets. At this moment, she gradually started to respect Yi Chen officially. She elevated his status to the same level as her and the others, or even higher. At that moment, Fire Emperor and Titan looked at each other. They did not see the killing intent in each other's eyes, the cold killing intent. They did not expect Yi Chen to be so powerful. He killed a god with a single slash. Even they could not do it. Mad Southern Yi, we'll fight you to the death. 2 extremely venomous voices sounded like the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves. Shutendaji soared into the air. His eyes were bloodshot, and his body began to change rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a monster that was nearly 6 meters tall with a stocky build and a blood-red face. The most shocking thing was that there were 5 horns on his head that looked like bull horns. There were more than 10 eyes on his chest and face, and each eye emitted a thick blood energy. Crow Tengu's death had completely infuriated him. At that moment, he revealed his true body in front of everyone. Demon Blade, what are you waiting for? Shutendaji, who had revealed his true body, let out a fierce roar. Demon Blade Muramasa immediately turned into a ray of bloody light and landed in his hand. A shocking blood energy soared into the sky from his body. Mad Southern Yi, how dare you kill Tengu? Even if we have to fall into a deep sleep, we'll kill you today. We'll extract your soul and refine it for 100 years, 1,000 years. Shutendaji's 15 eyes opened at the same time. He stared at Yi Chen with resentment. He had truly become a crazy demon. P.S. Chapter 2 more later. Chapter 6:23. Mad Southern Yi, you deserve to die. The berserk Shutendaji revealed his true form. His huge body, which was nearly 6 meters tall, stepped on the air and quickly walked toward the source. Every step he took caused the air to explode. Space trembled. The surging airflow swept out in all directions like a gust of wind, sending many people flying far away. Then, they looked at the huge figure in the sky in shock. The Demon Blade Muramasa's entire body emitted a shocking blood energy. One of the eyes on the hilt of the blade widened to the extreme, as if it could charm one's heart. Shutendaji and the Demon Blade Muramasa are really going all out this time. That's right. Even the Heavenly Crow Dog is dead. If they don't fight with their lives on the line, I'm afraid they'll follow in the Heavenly Crow Dog's footsteps. Perfect timing. Facing that, not only was Yi Chen not afraid, but he also charged forward with his body. He had never been afraid of anyone in a head-on battle. What is Mad Southern Yi doing? Are you planning to fight head-on with Shutendaji, who has revealed his true form? He's not even 2 meters tall, but he's trying to fight 6 meters tall? He's crazy. I think he's really crazy. Shutendaji can stomp him to death with 1 foot, right? Everyone cried out in shock when they saw what he was doing. Boom. At that moment, Yi Chen's body collided with Shutendaji. It was like a meteorite colliding. Violent energy swept out in all directions. Following the muffled sounds of collisions that sounded like muffled thunder, many of the boulders on the mountain peaks were shaken off. Everyone was shocked by the intense battle. Boom. The 2 of them separated after the final collision. A large part of Shutendaji's chest had caved in. A few of his eyes were shattered on the spot, revealing scarlet blood. He was in a sorry state. On the contrary, Yi Chen remained calm from the beginning to the end. I told you, killing the four of you trash is as easy as flipping my hand. Whoosh. The crowd on the ground was in an uproar when they saw that. Disbelief appeared on everyone's faces. Shutendaji's 6-meter-tall physique was no match for Mad Southern Yi? Why is this brat's body so strong? At that moment, the same thought flashed through Shutendaji and Demon Blade Muramasa's minds. Their expressions were extremely ugly. Even Yagyu Ida, who was mentally prepared, could not hide the shock inside him. Although he knew that Yi Chen's body was very strong, he did not expect it to be so strong that he could fight Shutendaji's true body head-on. Shutendaji shouted and roared at Yagyu Ida, who was watching the show from the side. Yagyu Ida, when are you going to fight with your life on the line? Yagyu Shutendaji, Yagyu. Yagyu Ida smiled bitterly as a fierce look flashed across his face. He seemed to have made up his mind. Sea and water, red, Yi, and of. If one took a closer look, one would realize that his silver long hair was turning white at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the skin on his face was withering and shriveling. Mad Southern Yi, I'll forcefully activate my potential today. I'll sacrifice my lifespan as the price to fight you to the death. His eyes were filled with madness, and a dazzling sword gleam suddenly bloomed in his hand. The sword gleam suddenly expanded to over 30 meters, but it was incomparably condensed. From afar, it looked like a divine sword that wanted to slash through the world. Sizzle! The sword gleam was filled with monstrous sword intent. It was like a bolt of lightning that suddenly exploded in the night as it sliced through the air and slashed at Yi Chen. That was it. The space between him and Yi Chen was split into two by the sword, forming a vacuum that could be seen with the naked eye. This sword strike is enough to kill any powerhouse below the top 5 in the world. Fire Emperor and Titan's pupils constricted. They felt goosebumps all over their bodies under Yagyu Aida's sword. At the same time, Shutendaji held the Demon Blade Muramasa in his hand. Vast energy surged out from his palm and wrapped around it. The Demon Blade Muramasa instantly turned into a black blade with a ghost head. The blade was extremely strange. The blade swayed slightly, and the air around it was instantly cut into two. Mad Southern Yi die. Shutendaji held the black ghost head blade in his hand and leaped a few steps forward with a cold gaze. Subsequently, he slashed at Yi Chen from afar. The blade and the sword charged at Yi Chen like two bolts of lightning. What can a mere blade and sword do to me? Yi Chen scoffed coldly. He waved his fist and faced the incoming blade and sword. Break! Boom! A punch! Yagyu Aida's sword gleam was shattered by Yi Chen first. What? He broke Yagyu Aida's most powerful sword strike with a punch? Monster, monster! At that moment everyone was so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell out. Shatter! Yi Chen extended his palm and grabbed the blade that Shutendaji was slashing at him without hesitation. Of course, he grabbed the blade aura. Boom! With a loud bang, the blade aura shattered and turned into countless violent energy that swept in all directions. How is this possible? Yagyu Ida and Shutendaji were shocked. Slash! Yi Chen summoned the golden saber formed by his divine consciousness. A golden saber gleam sliced through the sky. Oh no, Titan, let's attack now! Fire Emperor roared when he saw that. The flames on his body erupted. He leaped and threw a fist wrapped in flames at Yi Chen from behind. Mad Southern Yi, show mercy! Wherever he passed, the air would be set aflame. Roar! Titan roared, and his body expanded rapidly. Suddenly, he became a 3-meter-tall giant. He turned into an afterimage and chased after Yi Chen. He was even faster than Fire Emperor. Whoosh! At that moment, everyone was in an uproar. Obviously, they did not expect that even Fire Emperor and Titan, who had been watching from the sidelines, would make a move. Shameless! We agreed not to interfere in this battle, but they still couldn't hold it in. Luo Yao's pretty face was ashen. At that moment, Tang Jianfeng, who was beside her, made his move. A shocking sword intent suddenly bloomed from his body. He did not move. Instead, he just stood there quietly. However, a sword intent that wanted to destroy everything rose from the ground into the sky. It turned into a sword light and shot towards Fire Emperor and Titan. Under this sword intent, everyone was shocked. They felt like their bodies were about to be torn apart. At this moment, they finally believed that the silent young man beside them could unleash strength that was not weaker than a world-class giant in an instant. Chapter 6:24. Even though Fire Emperor and Titan's target was Yi Chen. However, both of their auras were extremely powerful. Therefore, they sensed Tang Jianfeng's sword intent at the same time. Oh no! Fire Emperor and Titan hurriedly retracted their attacks and turned around. Sword shadows. All they saw was sword shadows that filled the sky. It was like a huge net that was suppressing them. Fire Cloud Palm break! Fire Emperor shouted, and the flames on his right palm surged, turning into a huge flaming palm that slapped at the incoming sword shadows. Roar! Tai Tan relied on his powerful physical body to charge forward. Boom! The void shook, and the sword shadows that filled the sky were instantly shattered. Fire Emperor looked at Tang Jianfeng, who was on the ground with an extremely grim expression. Brat, how dare you ambush us from behind? Tang Jianfeng slowly walked out of the crowd and snorted. Bullying us with numbers? Do you really think there's no one capable in China? Brat, who are you? Can you tell me your name? Titan stared at Tang Jianfeng with fear in his eyes. Tang Jianfeng said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "We're from Kunlun." As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned. You guys are from Kunlun? However, Fire Emperor's expression changed drastically. He looked at Tang Jianfeng and Luo Yao with even more fear. You guys are from the Holy Land of Kunlun? Kunlun. Not only was this name famous in China, but it was also a taboo in the West because there were rumors that there were 8 dragon veins in this world. All 8 dragon veins originated from Kunlun, so Kunlun was also known as the ancestor of dragon veins. 5 of the 8 dragon veins flowed into China, and 3 flowed into foreign countries. And in Kunlun there was a Holy Land of China. This was also the reason why the Western countries did not dare to attack China even though they had been suppressing China internationally. If it really blew up and the Holy Land of China's Kunlun attacked, the Western countries would be forced to ask the Holy Land behind them. By then, the situation would definitely be out of control. Titan's expression changed drastically when he heard Fire Emperor's words. Luo Yao smirked coldly. Since you know our origins, why aren't you scram? The Fire Emperor's eyes flickered non-stop. You and the others have already sealed the mountain a few hundred years ago and will not interfere in the matters of the mortal world. Could it be that you want to make an exception today? However, are you guys planning to go against the International Tribunal and the Holy Land behind the International Tribunal for Mad Southern Yi? Titan sneered as well. Tang Jianfeng's face darkened when he heard this. However, Luo Yao smirked disdainfully. Why would Shang Santian care about the Western sect's opinion? Besides, we're not helping Mad Southern Yi today. We're doing it for China, lest outsiders think that China is useless. Not bad. Tang Jianfeng nodded slowly. Since you guys attacked Mad Southern Yi today, we definitely won't sit back and watch. If it were any other time, what does his life have to do with us? Fire Emperor and Titan looked at each other. Just as they were about to communicate secretly, they heard an earth-shattering roar, Shutendaji. Everyone hurriedly took a look. Shutendaji was split into 2 by Yi Chen's saber. The entire sky was almost drowned in crimson blood. In just over 10 breaths of time, another Japanese god was killed by Yi Chen with a single slash. Another one died. Mad Southern Yi, you really deserve to die. Fire Emperor's gaze was extremely cold. There were only 4 gods in Japan. Now, 3 of them had died in Yi Chen's hands. There was only Demon Blade Muramasa left. Even with Yagyu Ida, who was half crippled, he could not do anything alone. Even Luo Yao and Tang Jianfeng were shocked. They were stunned by Yi Chen's overbearing and fierce methods. This guy. He really wanted to kill all the Japanese powerhouses. At that moment, a saber gleam suddenly shot out from where Shutendaji died. The saber gleam was not aimed at Yi Chen. Instead, it turned into a blood-red saber gleam and charged at the sky. Who else could it be but Demon Blade Muramasa? It was really scared. It was scared by Yi Chen. It was supposed to be a piece of cake for the 3 gods in the eyes of the Japanese to fight Yi Chen together. Never did they expect Yi Chen to kill them one after another. Run inside. Yi Chen scoffed coldly and was about to chase after him. At that moment, a sword gleam slashed at him. Yagyu Ida came over with disheveled hair. Clearly, he did not want Yi Chen to chase after Demon Blade Muramasa. However, he was extremely old at that moment, and he was at the end of his rope. Trash, you deserve to die. Yi Chen grabbed through the air and a 3-meter-long saber gleam appeared in his hand. Mad Southern Yi, you can't kill him. Fire Emperor's expression changed, and he was about to stop him. The 3 gods were either dead or had fled. It could be said that Yagyu Ida was the strongest in Japan. If he were to die as well, then no one in the east could stop Mad Southern Yi. However, at that moment, another bone-chilling sword intent came from beside him. It was Tang Jianfeng's sword-like eyes staring at him. Almost at that moment, a dazzling saber gleam slashed across Yagyu Aida's neck. Bang! Yagyu Aida's head and body fell heavily to the ground. An extremely indifferent voice resounded through the entire Mount Fuji, exploding in everyone's ears like thunder. From today onwards, there will be no more sword saints in Japan. The sky above Mount Fuji that was originally dark suddenly lit up, and it was daytime again. However, the world was dead silent. On the ground, the faces froze one after another, and their gazes turned dull. 2 of the 3 gods had died, and 1 had escaped. Sword Saint Yagyu Aida's head had been chopped off. Before this, no one had expected such an ending. At that moment, Fire Emperor's furious voice sounded. Mad Southern Yi, I told you not to kill Yagyu Ida. How dare you disobey my order? Yi Chen turned around slowly and looked at him coldly. Who do you think you are? I'm going to kill an ant. How can I allow you to be so noisy? At the same time, a spectacle appeared in the sky above Tokyo. A blood-red dot of light flashed across the sky above Tokyo like a meteor. It was so fast that one could even hear screams of pain coming from within. Countless citizens thought that it was a miracle, and they kowtowed and prayed. The blood-red dot of light finally leaped into a temple in Reigao. Wisdom King, Heavenly Crow Dog, Shutendaji, and Yagyu Ida all died in Mad Southern Ye's hands. Only I escape. Save me, save me. The Demon Blade Muramasa floated in front of the white-browed old monk, who was holding a monk's staff in one hand and wearing blind shoes on his feet. The blade was trembling, and the aura on his body was very weak. Demon Blade Muramasa, you came at the right time. The white-browed old monk did not move, as if he had already known everything. A smile appeared in his turbid eyes. I've subdued the divine weapon. Wisdom King, is that true? The Demon Blade Muramasa was overjoyed when he heard that. He then said, That's great. With the Wisdom King's divine weapon in hand, even Mad Southern Yi will die. Wisdom King, kill him. From now on, I'm willing to recognize you as my master. No! The white-browed old monk shook his head slightly, and a strange smile appeared on his face. Now that I have the divine weapon in hand, I'm the god of the world. Trash like you is useless to me. You, the Demon Blade Muramasa's expression changed. Then, he turned into a blade gleam and wanted to fly out. However, at that moment, A huge black mouth swallowed the demon blade Muramasa on the spot. The black mouth chewed a few times and finally said slowly, "Not delicious, not delicious. It's stuttering and numb. It's not refreshing at all. Old monk, remember to find me something more refreshing next time." "That's right, if there's nothing else, I, your grandfather Night Demon, will go and accompany my little beauty, Green Princess. I have to say that little beauty is really extraordinarily charming. It's a pity that you're a bald donkey and don't lust after women." "Wait," the white-browed old monk suddenly said. The demon blade Muramasa fled to Reigao. "I believe Mad Southern Yi will chase after him soon. You still need to help me kill this person completely. Only then will the future be stable." "I see." The black mouth seemed to be conflicted, but your grandfather Night Demon hates fighting the most. The white-browed old monk smiled faintly. "If you're willing to help me, I'm willing to gather the power of all the monks in Reigao to build a golden body for Lu Ji. That way, her soul will be stable and she will serve you forever." "All right, your grandfather Night Demon agrees. Isn't it just killing a mortal? Your grandfather Night Demon can kill him with a fart." The black mouth immediately nodded. Then, it turned into a golden staff and landed in the white-browed old monk's hand. It did not forget to remind him, "Don't forget what you promised your grandfather Night Demon." The white-browed old monk held the staff in his hand and looked into the sky. A hint of arrogance flashed across his face. "Mad Southern Yi, come quickly! Now that I have a divine weapon in my hands, I'll kill gods and Buddhas if gods come. After I kill you and unify the East, I'll kill my way into the West." P.S. Chapter 4. Thank you for everyone's support. Please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 6:25. Mount Fuji's Sword Peak. At that moment, everyone stared blankly at the figure in the sky. There was only shock in their eyes, deep shock. It was this person who had fought against the three gods and Sword Saint Yagyu Ida all by himself. The four of them were practically the peak powerhouses of Japan. Even in East Asia or the entire world, they were world-class figures. The outcome of such a shocking battle caused everyone's hearts to tremble. Mad Southern Yi had won. Not only had he won, but he had also almost killed his opponent in an invincible manner. Apart from Demon Blade Muramasa, who had successfully escaped, the other three, including Shitendaji, Heavenly Crow Dog, and Sword Saint Yagyu, had all died under his blade. Such a nearly invincible figure in the world. How could their hearts not tremble? The Japanese cultivators present were in despair, as if they had lost their parents. At that moment, two figures with terrifying auras appeared above everyone's heads, as if a storm was about to arrive. "Mad Southern Yi, I told you not to kill Yagyu Ida. How dare you disobey my order?" Fire Emperor stood proudly in the air. The flames on his body grew stronger, and he emitted the aura of a fire god that could destroy the world. Titan's killing intent that was almost tangible locked onto Yi Chen. He said with an extremely grim expression, "Mad Southern Yi? We represent the International Tribunal. How dare you look down on us?" At that moment, the pressure from the two of them seemed to be earth-shattering. Countless people's expressions changed. Were Fire Emperor and Titan preparing to attack Mad Southern Yi? International Tribunal? What's that? Yi Chen smiled in disdain when he met their cold gazes. "It's not up to a mere international tribunal to interfere with who I want to kill." Meanwhile, the Japanese cultivators were secretly delighted. To them, even if Yi Chen killed Sword Saint Yagyu and the rest, he must have paid a certain price. Perhaps he was just forcing himself at that moment. On the other hand, Fire Emperor and Titan barely made a move from the beginning to the end. With the two powerhouses working together, they would definitely be able to kill Mad Southern Yi. Fire Emperor was furious. "Impudent! You guys are the ones who are impudent!" Yi Chen suddenly shouted as he stared at the two of them. "The two of you have been interfering with me from the beginning to the end. Don't think that I don't know what you guys are planning. I'll say it again. If the two of you are displeased with me, feel free to make a move and see if my saber is fast enough." As soon as these words came out, Fire Emperor and Titan's expressions turned cold. Provocation. A blatant provocation. As world-class giants, the two of them were big shots in the West. They had become famous earlier than Yi Chen. When had they ever been provoked like this? "Kill him!" The shout was like the roar of a ferocious beast. Tai Tan had taken the initiative to attack. Boom! An extremely terrifying aura erupted from his body, and a dazzling red light suddenly blossomed from his body. When everyone looked at him again, they discovered that his skin was bronze in color. From afar, it was as if his entire body was covered in a layer of copper powder, flashing with an unknown halo. It's the indestructible diamond body, the Titan's innate divine ability. Rumor has it that Titans can destroy an armored tank with a single punch and can even resist bullet. It seems like the rumors are true. Mad Southern Yi has finally met his match. Both of them have strong bodies. When the people on the ground saw the change in Titan, their expressions changed. Meanwhile, the joy on the Japanese cultivators' faces grew. Mad Southern Yi die. Titan's gigantic body tore through the air. He was faster than any martial Dao master Yi Chen had encountered. Before he was done speaking, he had already thrown a punch at Yi Chen's head. Body cultivator? Yi Chen was slightly shocked. Body cultivators, as the name suggested, were cultivators who specialized in cultivating their bodies. When they mastered it, they could tear space apart and cross worlds with their bare hand. He did not expect there to be body cultivators on Earth. Even so, Yi Chen was not afraid at all. When had he ever been afraid of anyone in terms of physical strength? Great! Yi Chen threw a punch. Golden light exploded around his fist as it collided heavily with Titan's punch. Boom! A huge ball of fire surged in the space where the two of them were. Everyone on the ground was shocked. Even though they were so far away, everyone could feel the wild and violent air in the sky and the terrifying aftershocks. Someone sucked in a breath of cold air and could not help but say in shock, "Both of them are so powerful. They can be said to be terrifying. I wonder who's stronger." Everyone nodded when they heard that. Even Tang Jianfeng and Luo Yao could not help but pay close attention to the situation in the sky. They would attack once they realized that something was wrong. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, a rather disheveled figure flew out from the flames, tearing the air apart with every step he took. When he looked again, he was astonishingly surprised to see that it was a Titan. Whoosh! At that moment, everyone cried out in shock. The corner of Titan's mouth was covered in blood, and one of his hands was trembling violently as if he was having a cramp. If one took a closer look, they would realize that the joints of his right fist had exploded. On the contrary, Yi Chen did not move at all. He did not look like he was injured at all. It was as if the power earlier did not affect him at all. Titan, who has the indestructible Vajra body, is actually at a disadvantage. He's even injured. How is that possible? At that moment, the faces on the ground froze one after another. How can this guy's physical body be so powerful? Titan roared in his heart in shock. He thought that his physical body could be considered invincible in the world. However, he was injured after fighting Yi Chen with a single blow. "Let me do it!" A furious roar shook the void. Fire Emperor had attacked. At that moment, his entire body was covered in flames. He opened his mouth and spat a gigantic wave of fire at Yi Chen. As soon as the wave of fire appeared, it seemed to have received some nourishment. It expanded and charged at Yi Chen like a fire dragon. The air burned wherever it passed, forming a vacuum zone that was filled with endless flames. The flames were like a wall of fire that charged at Yi Chen along with the fire dragon. At the same time, the temperature in the air rose. Many people felt like they were in a furnace. Their foreheads were covered in sweat, and their mouths were dry as they said, as expected of Fire Emperor. Just this fire ability alone is enough to burn everything. Are you playing with fire with me? Facing such a situation, not only was Yi Chen not afraid, he even scoffed coldly. He raised his right palm slowly, and a fireball condensed in his palm. The fireball was only the size of a fist, and it looked very small compared to Fire Emperor's fire dragon. Seeing this, Fire Emperor laughed out loud as if he had heard a joke. Mad Southern Yi, don't tell me you want to compete in fire ability with me? Chapter 626. Everyone could not help but shake their heads when they heard that. To them, Yi Chen's action was irrational. One must know that the reason why Fire Emperor was called Fire Emperor was because he was the most powerful in fire divinity. Not only did Yi Chen not dodge, but he even competed with his most powerful ability. Was that not arrogance? Is that so? Yi Chen responded expressionlessly. He lifted his hand and tossed it into the air. The fireball in his palm shot at the fire dragon that was charging at him. Boom! As soon as their divinity came into contact, a loud bang was heard. A sea of fire exploded in the air, dyeing half the sky red. Countless tiny fireballs fell to the ground. How is that possible? Disbelief filled his face when he saw that his fire divinity was broken by Yi Chen's fireball. Kill! Seizing the opportunity, Tai Tan activated the indestructible Vajra body again. He stepped into the air and threw a punch at Yi Chen's heart. He unleashed his full strength in this punch. He completely believed that he could crush Yi Chen's heart with a single punch. Great! Yi Chen took a deep breath in and said slowly, Divine Punch created in 33 days, the sixth form, Quake Hammer. At the next moment, a golden fist shadow traversed the sky and landed heavily on Tai Tan's chest like the hand of God. Oh no! Tai Tan's expression changed. He retracted his fist energy immediately and placed his hands before his chest in an attempt to neutralize Yi Chen's Quake Hammer. However, Yi Chen's Quake Hammer was known as the Divine Punch created in 33 days. How could a mortal martial artist take it head-on? After the golden fist shadow landed on Tai Tan's body, Kacha! The sound of joints shattering was the first to be heard, followed by Tai Tan's scream. At the next moment, Tai Tan's entire body slammed heavily into the ground. When he fought with all his might, everyone's eyes were instantly stunned. Tragic. It was too tragic. There was a fist mark on Tai Tan's left chest. One could almost see the flesh and broken ribs inside. Meanwhile, the rest of his body was covered in cracks. Tai Tan spat a mouthful of blood as he was shocked and horrified. Not only did Yi Chen's punch break the indestructible Vajra body that he was so proud of, it even pierced through his left chest. If he was not born with extraordinary talent and his heart was on the right side of his chest, his heart might have been shattered by Yi Chen's punch earlier. Meanwhile, Fire Emperor had already attacked Yi Chen again. Too strong. This person is too strong. I'm not his match. Thinking to this point, Titan dragged his body that was on the verge of shattering and turned around to run. He had no intention of staying to help Fire Emperor. Wah! The crowd burst into an uproar. Obviously, he didn't expect a world-class giant to run away just like that. Titan, you! Fire Emperor, who was fighting with Yi Chen, was almost angered to death when he saw that. The two of them were no match for Yi Chen even if they worked together. Now that Titan had run away, what was he going to do? As soon as that thought flashed through his mind, he hurriedly retreated dozens of meters and said slowly, Mad Southern Yi, I think there might be some misunderstanding between us. Why don't we shake hands and make up? Don't worry, I won't hold it against Yagyu Ida and the rest anymore. As the saying goes, no discord, no concord. I'll even recommend you to join the International Tribunal. At this point, his heart was bleeding. Initially, he wanted to kill Yi Chen while he was severely injured after the battle with Yagyu Ida and the rest. Never did he expect that he and the rest had underestimated Yi Chen's ability again. If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't want to fight, then don't fight. Who do you think I, Mad Southern Yi, am? Yi Chen took a step forward, and the air under his feet exploded. Mad Southern Yi, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. I admit that I'm not your match, but if I want to leave, how are you going to stop me? Fire Emperor snorted coldly. The flames under his feet surged, causing the air around him to explode. Then, he used the incomparably huge, explosive force to push him out. It was almost the blink of an eye. He had already flown 1,000 feet away. Since you're here, you should leave something behind no matter what. Yi Chen smirked coldly when he saw that. The almighty killer sword in his hand turned into a sword gleam and shot in the direction where Fire Emperor was escaping. Its speed broke through the speed of sound. A few seconds later, an incomparably painful scream came from afar. An arm mixed with blood fell from the sky. Mad Southern Yi, just you wait. The International Tribunal will not rest until you're dead. A roar filled with extreme resentment was heard all of a sudden. Judging from the pain in the roar, it was obvious that Yi Chen's sword had severely injured him. What a pity. Although these two aren't as powerful as me, they're still considered giants of the world. If they want to escape, even I can't catch up to them. Yi Chen shook his head lightly, but there was no hope. Although Titan and Fire Emperor were not dead, they were definitely crippled. Among them, Titan's indestructible Vajra body had been broken by his punch. It would be impossible for him to recover without 3 to 5 years. As for Fire Emperor, his strength would definitely plummet after losing an arm. He would not be able to cause much trouble even if he met him in the future. Titan wanted Fire Emperor to leave. However, the atmosphere did not show any signs of slowing down. At this moment, the world fell into a dead silence. At this moment, everyone on the ground held their breath. Their gazes were focused on the godlike figure in the sky. Their eyes were filled with fear, shock, disbelief, but most of it was fanaticism. This battle could be said to be one wave after another. Even their hearts could not take it anymore. In the beginning, when Yi Chen fought Yagyu Ida, everyone thought that Yagyu Ida had a high chance of winning. Never did they expect Yi Chen to beat Yagyu Ida until he fled like a rat. All the cherry blossoms on the mountain were killed. Subsequently, the 3 gods attacked. Yi Chen killed them one by one in an extremely domineering manner. In the end, only Demon Blade Muramasa escaped. Fire Emperor and Titan, the 2 giants of the world, did not end well either. Before this, who would have thought that this would be the outcome? Who would have thought that Yi Chen's combat strength had reached such a level? A mutter slowly came from the silent crowd. He killed the 3 gods of Japan, killed Sword Saint Yagyu Ida, defeated Fire Emperor and Titan, and is invincible in East Asia. He can be said to be invincible. From now on, Mad Southern Yi will be the East Asia #1. The person who spoke was Wudong Sec's Lu Chongkong. He walked out of the crowd slowly and clasped his fists at Yi Chen, who was in the sky. Subsequently, he knelt on one knee and said, "Lu Chongkong of China greets East Asia #1. Bang bang bang." After him, Meng Zixiang, Song Hu, and the rest of the Chinese cultivators knelt on one knee. Greetings, East Asia #1. In the end, apart from the Japanese cultivators, everyone who came to watch the battle cupped their fist. Greetings, East Asia #1. Greetings, East Asia #1. These thunderous sounds exploded in this part of the world. It lasted for a long time. Chapter 627. The Battle on Mount Fuji. The whole world's attention was on this place. However, before the 3 gods appeared, Crow Tengu and the others used a spell to change the weather of Mount Fuji. No matter how sophisticated the high-tech equipment was, it could not be detected. Therefore, other than the people present, the outside world knew nothing about this battle. Even so, the whole world was in a heated discussion about this battle. The most excited ones were none other than the East Asian countries led by China. The cultivators from both sides even started a war of words online. I bet 10 packs of spicy gluten that mad southern ye will definitely die. F*CKU, 10 packs of spicy gluten? Aren't you looking down on mad southern ye too much? At least 10 packs of betel nuts, the kind with black teeth. The 2 Koreans above, that's enough. Don't mock us like that. The news of the battle hasn't spread yet. How can you be so sure that mad southern ye will die? Isn't that obvious? If mad southern ye is really as invincible as the rumors say, he should end the battle as soon as possible. Why hasn't there been an outcome until now? Once mad southern ye dies, there'll be no one left in China. What the F***ck are you talking about? Are you courting death? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Some people even started fighting as they argued. For a moment, small-scale battles broke out everywhere in East Asia. However, the public's attention was always on Japan. Naturally, their small fights did not attract much attention. At this moment, an extremely shocking piece of news came out. Mad southern ye abused sword Saint Yagyu Ida in Japan, causing the only 3 gods in Japan to attack. The 4 experts joined forces to deal with mad southern ye, but they were still killed by mad southern ye one by one when the 2 sides fought. Fire Emperor and Titan, who were both world-class giants, were present. Seeing that Yagyu Ida and the rest had died, Titan and Fire Emperor attacked mad southern ye one after another. Unexpectedly, one of them had his body destroyed by mad southern ye, while the other had his arms severed by mad southern ye and fled. Killing 3 gods, killing sword Saint Yagyu Ida, defeating Fire Emperor and Titan, mad southern ye became the East Asia #1 in an invincible manner. Dead silence, dead silence. For a time, all the cultivation forums in East Asia, which were previously noisy, fell into a deathly silence at the same time. A slap to the face, the kind of slap that was loud and clear. Previously, they were still discussing whether mad southern ye was a match for the sword saint, Yagyu Ida. In the end, the news was that he was fighting against the 6 giants of the world at the same time. He had killed 3 gods, killed sword saint Yagyu Ida, defeated Fire Emperor and Titan. What a stunning battle record this was! Amidst the dead silence, a cultivator from Korea could not help but say, "It's fake, right? This joke is not funny at all. It must be fake. Otherwise, I'll live stream myself eating *T, 3 pounds. Gao Ligua's expert once again made a bold statement on Weibo. The Japanese powerhouse smirked coldly. Haha, mad southern ye has actually gone so far as to hire public relations and fake reviewers? Even the Chinese who supported Yi Chen could not believe it. This battle record was too valiant, too heaven-defying. At this time, the inside story of the battle on Mount Fuji was exposed one after another, accompanied by pictures and videos. From today onwards, there will be no more sword saints in Japan. Everyone's expressions changed when they saw Yi Chen beheading Yagyu Ida. When they saw the video of the Fire Emperor and the Titan fleeing, the entire internet fell silent once again. Korea fell silent. Goguryeo fell silent. The Japanese were dumbfounded. At this moment, all the Chinese cultivators felt as if they were on steroids. Right now, there are only 3 words that can describe what I'm feeling. Too ferocious, too awesome, too King awesome. Mad southern ye really surprises us everywhere. I was so scared that I grabbed my wife next to me and beat her up, as expected of the boss of the Yi army. Who in East Asia can compete with him? Who else? Korea? Goguryeo? Japan? Where's that Goguryeo powerhouse who said he wanted to live stream himself eating *T? Don't pretend to be dead. Come out quickly. I've already prepared hot *T. It's a lot. A bunch of trash who only know how to talk on the internet. This storm spread from the internet to reality at a rapid speed. At this moment, in China. At this moment, Korea could no longer sit still. Goguryeo panicked, and the Japanese were dumbfounded. At this moment, the entire world was in an uproar. Defeating Fire Emperor and Titan. All the world-class giants were shocked. The upper echelons of the various countries and the conglomerates were petrified. At that moment, Yi Chen's identity information landed on the tables of the leaders of various countries and the upper echelons of the conglomerates. There were 2 thick boxes. From when Yi Chen learned to walk to whether he had ever wet the bed or not, everything was clearly investigated. Yi Chen's battle record was too shocking. Many giants realized that Yi Chen's rise was unstoppable as the battle ended because the east of the world had already crawled under this young man's feet. He had trampled the entire East Asia. After this battle, Mad Southern Yi is known as the East Asia #1. He deserves it. Germany welcomes Mr. Mad Southern Yi to visit us when you're free. This person isn't handsome, and he's not tall, but he's a very dangerous person. If anyone touches his bottom line, he'll transform into a bloodthirsty Shura. Mad Southern Yi has blasphemed the International Tribunal. The International Tribunal will definitely pursue this matter to the end. The media outlets in the West made exclusive reports on Yi Chen. The U.S. Times even named Yi Chen as the most charming man from the East. While the outside world was in a frenzy, Yi Chen, who was the person involved, was at the Chiba residence. He did not have the time to pay attention to the outside world's evaluation of him because as the battle ended, countless forces sent over invitations to meet him. After leaving everything to the excited Chiba Yoshiko, he closed the door and slowly drank tea with Luo Yao and the rest. Tsk tisk. Luo Yao put down her teacup and looked at her. A glint flashed across her beautiful eyes. You're quite good at pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. You made me and Xiaofeng worry about you. This Yi thanks the 2 of you for lending a hand to me earlier. Yi Chen smiled lightly. Although Luo Yao and Tang Jianfeng did not mention their origins, Yi Chen knew that they were from Shang Santian. Among the people from Shang Santian that he had come into contact with, Luo Yao and Tang Jianfeng were considered normal. It's useless to thank me. If it weren't for China, I wouldn't care about your life. Who asked you to hide it from me for so long? Luo Yao scoffed and stood up. All right, it's time for us to leave. You can continue being the boss in Japan. However, let me give you a piece of advice. Although humans are powerful, they can't go against a country. That's all I have to say. I hope you know what to do. After saying that, she walked out of the room. Tang Jianfeng followed. After taking a few steps, Luo Yao seemed to have thought of something. She suddenly turned around and said, I forgot to tell you that my name isn't Luo Yao. Luo Yao is just a fake name I used. My name is Luo Shui Yao. And you're a girl. Yi Chen smiled lightly. Luo Yao was stunned at first. Then, a blush appeared on her pretty face. So everyone knows that I'm a girl. Mad Southern Yi, I'll remember you. After saying that, she left in a hurry. I'm afraid these 2 didn't come to Japan just to play. Yi Chen looked at the 2 of them leaving and thought to himself. Subsequently, he frowned and said, But what does this have to do with me? My current mission is to find Night Demon. At this point, he stood up and looked north. He smiled with his hands behind his back. A big fish has been released. It's time to reel in the net. Chapter 628. The next morning. Mount Koya was located in the northeast of Wakayama Prefecture, Japan. 2 figures were standing on top of a stone peak. Chiba Yoshiko stood next to Yi Chen respectfully. She introduced slowly as she looked at the scenery around her. Master, this is Mount Koya. Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back. He looked into the distance and saw mountains surrounded by lush, ancient trees. The terrain was like a blooming lotus. He could not help but praise, the scenery isn't bad. It's a place worth visiting. Master, Mount Koya has a history of 1,200 years. It was listed as a World Cultural Heritage by the United Nations more than 10 years ago. It can be considered one of the 3 divine mountains of Japan. Chiba Yoshiko said confidently, To be precise, Mount Koya is equivalent to one of the two major towns of Buddhism in Japan because it's the main mountain of Dongmi, a branch of Buddhism in Japan. A sacred place of Buddhism? Yi-chin could not help but look at her. That's right. Chiba Yoshiko nodded and said, Buddhism in Japan is divided into Dongmi and Tongmi. Dongmi is the Kongabuji temple that was created by the Japanese Hongfa master Kong Hai. The corresponding Tangmi is Mount Hai in Kyoto. Mount Hai was created by the Dharma master Zuching after he returned from the Tang dynasty's Tiantai sect to obtain scriptures. Therefore, Mount Hai and Rigoino are known as the two major Buddhist towns in Japan. These two towns uphold Buddhism, subdue demons, and save people. They're called Dharma monks. She could not help but look at Yi-chin carefully as she spoke to this point. Master, why did you ask me to bring you to Mount Koya? Could it be that Master also believes in Buddhism? She was confused. Yi-chin had asked her to bring him around early in the morning, but they ended up in Mount Koya. To her, Yi-chin was a master who slaughtered all living beings. It was completely in conflict with the Buddhist concept of not killing. I'm here to look for an old friend of mine. Yi-chen's eyes revealed a trace of reminiscence. Rather than saying that the demon blade Muramasa had escaped, it would be more accurate to say that he had deliberately let him go. This was because only the three great Shikigami knew the whereabouts of the night demon. If they were all killed, the clues would be cut off. However, what confused Yi-chin was that the imprint he had left on the demon blade Muramasa had disappeared, so there were only two outcomes. One was that a mighty figure had helped the demon blade Muramasa remove the imprint he had left, and the other was that the demon blade Muramasa had died. Yi-chin would rather believe the latter. However, he was sure that the divine sense imprint he had left on demon blade Muramasa had disappeared in Mount Koya. As he pondered, Chiba Yoshiko became more and more curious. Looking for an old friend? Could it be that Master's friend became a monk in Mount Koya? Let's go. Yi-chin lifted his feet and walked slowly to the Kongabuji temple in the mountain. More than half an hour later, the two of them successfully arrived at the temple in the mountain. Rather than calling it a temple, it would be better to call it a small town in the mountains where countless temples were gathered. As far as the eye could see, it was densely packed with temples. Yi-chin stood in front of the largest temple. He lifted his eyes and looked at the two stone tablets before him. It said, Mount Koya Shingen Sect, Jinggang Buji Temple. It was written in Chinese characters, and the strokes were strong and powerful. That's strange. Countless people from all over the world come to Mount Koya every day to admire the Dharma. Why is there no one here today? Chiba Yoshiko looked around and saw that the temple and the courtyards were quiet. I don't see a single monk. It's simple because someone's waiting for us. A playful smile flashed through Yi-chen's eyes. He then took a step forward and said calmly, Mad Southern Yi from China passed by your temple, so I came to pay you a visit. His voice contained a mysterious concept. When the word Hua came out of his mouth, Chiba Yoshiko, who was at the side, heard it normally. However, when the word country came out, it turned into a thunderclap that exploded in her ears. Every word that followed was like a thunderclap. Blech. In the end, even though she covered her ears with both hands, she still felt the rumbling in her ears. She could not help but spit a mouthful of blood, and her face was filled with shock. Boom! The fallen leaves on the ground danced amidst the thunderclap. It was like a violent gust of wind sweeping past, and it was also like countless locusts lingering in the sky. When the thunderclap ended, a series of footsteps slowly came from the end of the stone steps. Subsequently, two monks in white kasayas and bamboo hats walked down with Buddhist staffs in their hand. The leading monk stopped slowly when he was less than 5 steps away from Yi-chin. He bowed and said, Greetings, China No. 1 and East Asia No. 1, Mad Southern Yi. Our temple's abbot, Wisdom King, has been waiting for you for a long time. Please. The two of them gestured in unison and turned around to walk away. Yi Chen followed them leisurely. The group of people went up the stone steps and passed through the long corridor. Finally, they stopped at the entrance of a slightly solemn hall. The two monks said, "Your Excellency, Mad Southern Yi, the abbot is inside. You can go in. However, this lady is not allowed. It doesn't conform to the temple's rules. Wait for me here." Yi Chen glanced at Chiba Yoshiko and pushed open the door of the hall. At the same time, the door closed slowly. The hall was about 200 square meters in size. There was a gilded pillar in each of the 4 directions. There were all sorts of birds, beasts, insects, and fish carved on the pillars. There were all sorts of tables and Buddha statues around them. In front of the hall stood a Buddha statue that was more than 10 meters tall. The Buddha statue was solemn, like a Buddha who pitied the world. On the meditation cushion under the Buddha statue, there was a white-browed old monk in white monk robes. Almost when Yi Chen looked at the old man, the white-browed old monk turned around and said with a smile, "Esteemed guest, you've come from afar. Please take a seat." As soon as he said that, a meditation cushion moved without any wind and charged straight at Yi Chen. After Yi Chen sat down with his legs crossed, another table floated over. There was a tea set on the table, and the aroma of tea filled the air. "This is the unique tea of Mount Koya. Why don't you try it?" Yi Chen did not reject him. He picked up the cup of tea and sniffed it lightly before drinking it in one gulp. He said with a smile, "It's bitter but not astringent. It's refreshing. It's good tea. This humble monk's Dharma name is Wisdom King. I'm currently the abbot of Mount Koya's Mt. Koya." The white-browed old monk's expression was tranquil as he said in extremely pure Mandarin, "I didn't expect the East Asia #1 to come to Mount Koya." Yi Chen said while smiling lightly when he saw him reveal his identity, "Don't monks like you live in the mountains for a long time and don't eat the food of the mortal world? Why would you pay attention to the current world situation?" "That's not it." Wisdom King shook his head slightly. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the entire world. "We cultivate the heart." "What is the heart?" "In my opinion, the heart is the world. Since we cultivate the world, why don't we pay attention to the world?" "Close to the world?" "Since you guys pay attention to the world, I believe you know what I've been doing recently." Yi Chen lifted his eyes and looked at him fixedly. "Logically speaking, I've killed countless people in Japan. You guys should hate me. Why did you invite me in and treat me with such affection?"